And also, we'll look at private hospitals today and what the private hospitals are doing in terms of addressing the COVID-19 fight and what we had before COVID came. Is it still there or has it taken a pause? Has it taken have other diseases taken a pay cut or gone on unpaid leave?
Or have people thought it's no longer a priority?
Yeah. To take themselves to hospital.
Yeah.
Well, in terms of things that people may have forgotten, we see the cases that then have been deemed positive rising. Interestingly enough, around the world, not just in Kenya, around the world we saw a heightened number of cases. Remember when we spoke yesterday, we were at 3.5 million cases. Yesterday in the world, cases rose by 250,000. So we're now at 3.7 million, very fast approaching 4 million cases with 258,000 deaths, 1,242,347 cases having recovered. We can't stay away from giving those numbers. We saw 45 cases in Kenya yesterday. We saw 245 cases in Nigeria yesterday. We have seen a jump in cases in Somalia, for example. Somalia now at almost 800 cases. And this is the trend around the world. We understand that more testing is taking place, but we also understand that it just means that more people have it. And the necessity to be extra careful, I think, is now heightened.
The French are saying it is appearing like we've had COVID since early January.
Yeah.
Actually, some people say since November of last year.
And it's possible that quite a number of people have had it and just didn't know what it was.
Yep.
Exactly. And even if you look at the numbers that you're talking about, in the active cases, 98% of those cases are either mild or asymptomatic.
There you go.
Yeah. So it means we're just identifying people with the virus, not necessarily people that are critically ill.
Yeah, not people that are ill.
So for me, it's an encouragement.
It is an encouragement. So that of course, we know that bad news travels much faster. And the cases that we see where people are critically ill and need ventilators and this, they're actually then actually in the minority.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because 2% of 3 million, is it 3 million or 2 million that are active? That's about 40-something thousand. So if you compare the people that are critically ill versus the people with mild or are asymptomatic, then it is an encouragement. I think the only problem is that when people are critically ill or severely ill, then it's really, really bad and requires a lot from the health system. And I think that is what is burdening about COVID-19. But if everyone had mild symptoms or is asymptomatic, then you would probably be moving around without really worrying so much.
Taking that into consideration, is it okay then to release measures?
The problem is you don't know who gets it and who needs that critical care.
It's still necessary, I think, to keep people safe as much as we can, to make sure that even if you do have it, that the next person doesn't, you know, that you protect yourself or the other. We understand the herd immunity kind of thing. We understand that concept. But we've seen also that you know, in less protected societies, for example, it may not work.
Because here you're looking at protecting your most vulnerable.
Exactly.
Yep. So people who are otherwise healthy, like the Kenyan statistics, again, you see that between 30 and 39 is where our majority of cases are. Those are people that are upwardly mobile, they're productive, they're on the move, they're up and about. So if you release measures or you ease measures, those are the people that you'll find going into those joints that the CS was talking about. Those are the people who will be traveling up country, will be going all over the place, and they would be carriers while they themselves are either asymptomatic or have mild symptoms.
Right. So you can take it to someone who's actually vulnerable.
Exactly.
Why not just lock up then those that are vulnerable? Let everybody else be free.
Like what the UK
you are
did.
vulnerable, stay here, stay indoors.
Or like what Italy did. Yeah. Italy basically went up well into the progression of this, actually went out and rounded up quite a number of elderly people between certain ages and said, we're going to quarantine you for now. Because even if we have people moving about, we want to make sure that at least we protect
they don't get to you.
You know? So, well.
So it's probably something to think about. Because now the thing there, if you're going to lock up or keep people that are vulnerable away, and these are your elderly people, the people with pre-existing conditions, people with HIV, diabetes, all of those people, then you have to find ways of making them survive. The same questions or the same issues we've been raising about social protection. When you've kept them away, how do they survive? Do you support the people who are active and working so that they support them, or do you support this group directly? So there are lots of balls to juggle in the air to get a balance.
Or create a system where it allows them to be productive, but in their own space. Continue being productive, but in your own space, where you're not exposing yourself or getting exposed to the population that is spreading this thing as fast. Okay, so let's look at the other numbers. You're saying we are approaching 4
million, yeah. Look, from all indications, by the time we hit the weekend, we'll be at 4 million cases. It is very possible that if we see the kind of numbers that we saw yesterday, we could be at 4 million cases tomorrow. With 250,000 cases in the last 24 hours, it's possible that by the end of tomorrow, we're at 4 million.
That means 10,000 per hour.
Yeah, this is literally what's going on. The United States still continues to be the highest. Coming out of the UK yesterday, we saw now that the UK has the highest number of deaths in Europe. Not the highest number of cases, but the highest number of deaths with 29,000. Now, if we look at Africa, interestingly enough, we talked about the countries that have been able to stem this, and it could be all coincidental. But Madagascar has 151 cases and 0 deaths.
And medicine.
And they seem to have medicine. I know Dr. Mercy Korea does not like this story.
What's it called? What are we calling it? Organic, COVID organic or something.
I think it's COVID organic. But you see, it's okay. I'm anti saying they have medicine because it hasn't been proven, it hasn't been tested. So they have something
that is working.
That we don't know if it's working, Eric. They have something that they've said is working.
Have sent emissaries to go and check.
We are not going to wait for Mzungu to come and tell us whether what we have is
working.
No,
we haven't said it's not working. We're saying let Madagascar share this COVID organic.
So that we will test put it in a lab and call it something else.
No, and test it and see if it works or not.
What's taking so long to test it? These guys have been using it for so long. They're actually even donating it to other countries. So
it hasn't reached here yet, so that we can test it and see.
In a minute.
Go for it.
Magufuli said, "Bring that thing here."
It's gone to West Africa. They're donating it in.
But remember, as I said, I think it was on Monday that yes, Madagascar have COVID organic, but they also instituted the other measures. It's not that it's only the medicine that is working.
Of course.
So there's no one size fits all.
It's okay.
So if this medicine added to the fact that they have 0 deaths, let's have a look at it.
151 cases and 0 deaths.
In Madagascar?
Yes. So they're just like Ethiopia with 145 cases and 4 deaths. Zambia, and we look around that area with 138. Going up west to Togo, 128 cases. Uganda added 1 case, so they're now at 98, still under 100. Benin at 96 cases. Mozambique, 81 cases. Libya, 63 cases with 3 deaths. South Sudan, 52 cases with 0 deaths. Malawi, 41 cases with 3 deaths. Eritrea, 39 cases and 0 deaths. This is what we see. Botswana, 23 cases, still very low, and 1 death. We remember that Botswana had put measures in place just like Sierra Leone had. They declared a state of emergency. They deployed the army and the military to the streets, and they said, look, nobody's coming out. We'll deal with those hunger issues or whatever they may be, but we're not allowing this to happen. And interestingly enough, they stayed case-free for a very long time. And then towards the end of March, they got the first 6 cases. And now, 2 months down the line, 23 cases and 1 death in Botswana. We saw heightened cases, like I said, in Nigeria yesterday, where they recorded the highest number so far, with 245 cases yesterday alone. We understand also that there's mass testing taking place there, but now it puts Nigeria at 2,950 cases, whereby it's almost an increase of 1,000 cases in the last 3 days. Ghana at 2,700, and we still have the northern African states at 4,000 in Algeria, 5,000 in Morocco, 7,000 in Egypt, and in South Africa, 7,500 as well. So these are the numbers that we're seeing around the continent.
Looking at Tanzania, the numbers are remain the same.
Yes.
What has happened?
But you know what Tanzania is
They
doing is
ceased
that
testing.
they're not releasing
They're not announcing.
they're not announcing their results for until they're probably going to announce on Friday, and you'll see that the number is quite high, but they're giving weekly reports. They're not telling anybody what's
So it's
going
not a
on.
daily report
It's
like
not a daily
everybody
report,
else.
Okay.
right?
Is as of last weekend, this is where Tanzania
Yes,
was.
that's what they're gonna
let's
do.
wait for.
The next weekend.
Yeah.
But I think then that causes an unnecessary alarm and panic, because probably it's from in Tanzania and anyway around the East African region, because if they are at 480 and let's say at the end of the weekend they say we are at 700, we all panic and think, oh my God, what has happened?
Yeah,
As opposed to the daily.
we blame ourselves. Now,
updates.
if you choose to consume information on a daily basis and somebody says, I'm going to give you information on a weekly basis, now, surely, if you panic, it's up to you, man.
No. You know, you have to work on.
I think
we
we
have
need
to
to
work
work on
on
that
people's.
context.
No. We have to work on people's psyche. You look at Kenya.
We
Where
can't force Magufuli to act like, because everybody else is doing this, so even you announce daily. Me, I'll come and tell you, in this week, this is the number we have.
Then they should even break down that week. That on Monday we increased by so many.
Why?
Like that.
Why?
Because you see, it sort of tells us your progression. Yeah.
There's a weekly progression. Break it down by 7, whatever
No,
you want to do.
we have to work on
say
people's
per day,
psyche. You have to prepare people psychologically. The same thing that Kenya has been doing. You know, Kenya was starting. It was 1 case, then 4. It was gradual. So at least you sort of prepared.
Now there's panic. We are talking about, we have a sharp rise in the numbers in Kenya, but it's because of the testing. You see, if we don't consume information on a 360 lens, then we will always look at that information in a skewed manner. We'll now start saying, you see, now we have the 45 new cases in 1 day. My God, this thing is spreading. Come on. It's just because you've gone and tested in a place that you thought to be a hotspot. It's a high-risk area, and now the results are basically coming out. If you didn't go to test, you'd still be telling us, in the last 24 hours, we've seen 10 cases, and it not be the truth on the ground. So I think it's about how we consume that information. However, I get you the point that you're raising, though.
You have to work on people's psyche so that they do not act irrationally and start doing,
I think the rest of the East African countries should now start doing weekly updates of coronavirus.
Imagine if Kenya was doing weekly updates. Life by the time you're from 1 week
Monday
to
Friday, and then they announce on Saturday.
Then you come.
and people
Then you
relax.
come.
people relax on Sunday
and then Monday.
they're back at it.
Has anything? Is it any different now?
Well, even now, it's not different. No,
But people are a bit cautious.
People are a bit cautious.
A bit cautious, but if you're just waiting for the end of the week, you'll do all your other things and then wait for Saturday. Then you decide what you'll do the next week before they give you another announcement.
Okay. Let's look at today's proverb and then go into a bit of weather. Rain does not fall on one roof alone. This is a proverb from Cameroon. Rain does not fall on one roof alone. Basically, what we are saying is trouble does not discriminate. When it comes to all of us, and you and your neighbors.
I was looking at it from a blessings point of view.
Okay, yeah. So blessings don't also discriminate.
Right?
True.
So when you're blessed, you're all blessed. Okay.
I think something positive.
Okay. Yeah. Rain doesn't fall on one roof alone. That is today's proverb. 17 minutes after 6. Good morning.
24/7 around the world, non-stop. This is Spice FM. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM.
We'll see a mostly cloudy morning in Nairobi today, currently at 17 degrees. Chance of rain is still high for the day. We'll see highs of 23 and lows of 16. Flooding is still happening in many parts of the country today. Let's take a look at Nyeri, where it's cloudy. 17 degrees. We'll see highs of 23 with thunderstorms in the afternoon. Nakuru at 15 degrees is mostly cloudy, but we're going to see rain in that part of the rift. Highs of 24 and lows of 14. Eldoret is mostly cloudy this morning, but rain, yes, will come in later with highs of 22 and lows of 13. In Kisumu and the western area, it is still flooding and quite heavily so. Mostly cloudy conditions for the parts of the morning. Coming into mid-morning, though, it will rain and highs of 27 and lows of 19. Mombasa is raining this morning at 25 degrees. We'll see highs of 27, giving way to thunderstorms through most of the day into early evening. Malindi is raining as well at 26 degrees. We'll see highs of 28 and lows of 24 today. Thunderstorms are forecasted for the afternoon. Taking a look into Dar es Salaam, where it's raining as well at 24 degrees, highs of 29, and thunderstorms promised for most parts of the day. 19 degrees in Kampala, and it's mostly cloudy. Thunderstorms also, highs of 25 and lows of 19. Taking a look into Joburg at 8 degrees, it's a bit of a chilly morning, but it'll be clear and sunny conditions throughout the day, still with highs of 21 and a chilly low of 7. In Lagos, it's clear skies at 27 degrees when the sun comes up, highs of 33 and lows of 26. 13 degrees and clear skies in New York this morning, highs of 16 and lows of 9. Paris weather will be cloudy this morning at 13 degrees. We'll see highs of 21 and lows of 8 with cloudy conditions throughout the day. And finally in London, it's clear skies at 6 degrees. We'll see highs of 17 and lows of 6.
Chilled Spice.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation at 22 minutes after 6. Our live stream is up, www.spicefm.co.ke. Watch us on Facebook, Spice FM KE, on YouTube, Spice FM KE. We are also live streaming the show on Twitter at Spice FM KE. In the room this morning, Nduoko, Eric Latif, and Dr. Marcy Korir. Let's take a look at the newspaper headlines. What do you have, Ndu?
All right. The man who loved Keroche heiress.
Keroche?
Heiress.
Okay.
What is it?
No, I hadn't had the heiress part.
What did you hear?
What did you hear?
I was an heiress.
Okay. All right, Eric. Sudden death puzzle. It's been a puzzle for a while now. Omari Lali Omar, who finds himself at the center of a probe into Tekra Karanja's death, opens up on how a chance meeting transformed into a 10-month love roller coaster. Unfortunately, has ended in death for Tekra. So the question is, he's asking, why would I kill my love? But everybody thinks he did, unfortunately.
Everybody?
Well, a lot of people think that he did. Okay. This is the first time he's commanding attention outside of his close-knit circle in Lamu's Shela village. For the first time, his existence has been flipped upside down. He finds himself at the center of an ongoing probe over the sudden death of Tekra Muigai, the daughter to billionaire industrialist Tabitha Karanja and her husband Joseph. She died on the 2nd of May after what the family described as a tragic accident. Amid the media frenzy, the unanswered questions, truths and half-truths, the man who was there when it all happened has spoken out for the first time. So according to him, he has no reason to kill this young lady. He had no reason from what he's saying. However, he is in police custody, or
DCI officers have
questioned him
to Lamu.
They've gone to the home where they were supposedly resident at, and the questions continue. The probe and investigations go on. There are many things that are being unfurled here, and many accusations being made. A lot of speculation taking place.
A lot of it coming out of lack of information. I think the people who have the information so far are Lali himself and now the investigators who are piecing together the evidence. But this is what he says, that on that day, the 23rd, they woke up early. They woke up late that day. They had their lunch at around 2 p.m. And then people went into different things. Tekra loved yoga, so she went to yoga. He went to do other things.
Okay.
he went to do other things. And then they met later that evening. Around 6 p.m., they reconvened where the couple had been staying for weeks at Jaha House. But it wasn't going to be a normal day. There was something festive about her on that day, according to him. He ordered 5 liters of madafu and she ordered 3 bottles of vodka.
Okay.
They had liters of passion juice as well. Omar says the alcohol was so much for the couple that waiting staff thought that they were expecting guests. It wasn't strange to see the couple walking hand in hand in the narrow corridors of Shela together, or taking sunset boat rides, riding the gentle waves that come with low tide. So this is what started happening. At around 1 a.m., Omar says he retired to bed. I was on antibiotics, so I didn't drink as much. So on antibiotics, you can drink a bit.
You shouldn't even drink.
Okay. So he says, I was on antibiotics, so I didn't drink as much. I stretched out on a nearby couch and dozed off. A few hours later, a series of unfortunate events would happen that would set in motion a chain reaction that ends up in one family losing a daughter and a sister, and another on the brink of losing a father and a son. There are only 2 things that can break through the silence that settles on Shela at night: the muezzini's call to prayer and the unnatural loud noises. I heard a loud thud and then a single scream. He looked towards where Tekra was sleeping and she wasn't there. He looked forward towards the staircase and saw her at the bottom of the stairs. This is what he says. The police and the investigators have, it's been reported previously that he has given conflicting accounts in different occasions. One time saying this, another time telling a different story. And now that's why they want to say, so what exactly happened? It's a very unfortunate story, this one.
Quite unfortunate.
Very
Tragic.
sad, tragic in all ways. For the family of Tekra, it's a sad thing. Omar Lali himself also has a family. He actually, on that day, in that afternoon when Tekra went for yoga, he went to visit his own son. So there's a young child whose father is now locked up and whose father could possibly even face charges over the death of this particular girl, whom he describes as his lover.
The love of his life.
Love of his life. 10-month love affair.
Yeah, and I think for me, the other thing that comes out from this story is the access to health services. If you look at it, they're saying it took almost 10 hours for the CT scan to come back. And I'm thinking this is an emergency situation.
When was she taken after now Lali called? I can imagine it's Lali who alerted.
So I think they went to Shella Dispensary. Yeah. So obviously that dispensary will not have a CT scan. So by the time you look for a CT scan to be done, then the results come back. That whole chain, those are precious hours that maybe would have made a difference for this girl.
Yeah.
Because let's say if you're in Nairobi and you're in such a situation, within an hour of going to hospital, if they have a CT scan that's working, that's the other thing, you'd have your result, and doctors would be in a position to make a decision on what to do for you immediately. So maybe that would have made a difference for this girl if these health facilities were available.
It's a very good angle that you bring up there, because these are things that we talk about.
We talk about them every
countrywide.
day.
You can have an accident
Anywhere.
And what happens to you?
Exactly.
Do you have to think of being airlifted to Nairobi to a private facility? By the time you're arriving in that private facility,
You've lost
by the time
time.
even the airlift, the ambulance comes and picks you up, time lost. And then you arrive like Professor Ken Walibora. He's been taken to hospital in good time, but he needs intensive care, and there's no intensive care facility available. So you're sitting there for 18 hours waiting.
Ridiculous.
On chance.
Yeah, because for me,
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, for such young people who are otherwise healthy, really, we shouldn't lose them because of a system that is not working. Yeah, because if the system was working, we would probably be talking about something else. Because those initial hours, like in a heart attack, for example, your first 6 hours is everything.
A stroke too. I mean,
your first 6 hours is critical. After 6 hours, then your prognosis or your chances of going back to normal go down every minute. So imagine now in such a situation if she had gotten the right kind of care, and even if, let's say, she needed to be put on a medical coma, for example. I'm just saying, not that she needed it, to allow her brain time to recuperate. Something would have been done, because all of these things are possible only if you have the right information. So for me, it's tragic, it's sad, but I hope this story and that of Ken Walibora would be a wake-up call for us to do something, because it can be any one of us. Because look at them, they could access healthcare anywhere.
These are people who had the means. They actually could have afforded the best health health attention, but they didn't get it.
Just because of the circumstances in which the accidents found them. Yeah.
Unfortunately.
So I think it's a wake-up call for me to relook at our health system and, think about it. It could be any one of us. And at that point, your medical card that could have given you access anywhere is just a card.
It just don't matter. 6:30. This is a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Let's take a look at traffic, and then we look at other headlines. Good morning.
Mombasa Road, past Green Park. It's looking very good today. You're going to get stuck right around Cabanas, unfortunately, because there is a little bit of a holdup of traffic there, getting to then the airport turn off, and then getting down towards General Motors. Looks packed this morning, guys. After... down for a while, and then after right around Bellevue, getting yourself to the Nyayo Stadium roundabout, that's when it looks much better. Getting into the CBD from Thika Road today is not looking too bad. We still do see some traffic on Thika Road today. It seems like folks are still out from what we see. Other than that, it doesn't look so bad now. We'll still keep taking information. Eastgate Road, right off of Mombasa Road, is completely flooded. This is from the rains that happened before, but nobody's able to move there, so you might want to approach with caution if you're going to be in that area. the weather for today is predicted as thunderstorms, so that means a lot of the roads are going to be covered. My Mahu is a problem, guys, because we have roads that have completely disappeared, and if you're in that area trying to go to or fro, there's going to be an issue there. So you want to plan ahead and approach with caution if you must. Spice of MKE, that's how you can reach us on Twitter. Let us know what you see. We'll give you more information in a bit.
This is a situation that's been the biggest conversation. We are taking a look at the newspaper headlines. The other headline in the Standard, we're going to give it a bit more of weight in the coming hours. It's the deadly chain of transmission. Marcy, what's this about?
So this is from the Ministry of Health. How the coronavirus has literally been spreading, and the two places that we highlighted on the story is the Kawangware transmission chain. We'll look at that and what the source was and how, it moved and why now Kawangware is a hotspot. And the other one is Kilifi Mombasa transmission chain. How one person in Kilifi ended up being the Mombasa issue that we have now. KPA was a big problem just
so
because
one
of that
case
one person.
in Kilifi is what ended up with the transmission in Mombasa.
Yes. So, and from that one case so far from this chain, I think it was 39, and then the one for Kawangware was there's a
189.
7.
Oh,
No.
The number of
That's the case number,
Okay.
but the number of people, I think it was a chain of 14
wow.
at the end of it, and this other one was 39. And so it just shows you how if proper isolation is not done, what it means. Because assuming that I am your index case here, then Latif will get it, Ndu will get it, Ndu you'll go home somewhere, and your household,
Gets
in
it.
your household, if you have a house help,
All over.
she goes somewhere, the same. So it becomes a whole web. So the thing is, you have to break that transmission somewhere. You have to find a way of breaking that chain of transmission.
And this is where the isolation comes in.
That is where the isolation comes in. But now the thing with the isolation is, and we talked about it yesterday, and even when we were talking with Colonel Oguna, you are struggling to make 100 shillings a day for your food. And then here you're told we'll isolate you, and then you have a bill of whatever amount that is obviously more than the 100 per day. Who will come out and get tested?
Yeah.
There you go. This is the problem.
Yeah.
So this chain, for me, unless we address what is the consequences of testing, these chains are going to continue.
It's going to be like this.
Yeah, it's going to be like this.
Goes into the dark web or the black market, sort of, because it's happening undercover.
Exactly.
And nobody wants to
Yeah.
come out and expose what they're doing.
Yeah. So we look at this, and then we'll also look at Isli, where the genesis was, and this was in Parklands and Dandora.
Okay.
Yeah.
There are many stories linked to this. Coming back to the Standard. On page 4, chaos after youths eject medics from Mombasa. I'm going to give you 3 headlines and then you can pick the one that you like the most. Okay?
So one is chaos.
Chaos after youths eject medics from Mombasa Old Town. Diagnostic testing for residents in Old Town Mombasa has been suspended after angry youth ejected a team of medical officials and threatened to burn down an ambulance. Trouble started at around 4 p.m. Monday when rowdy youth, armed with crude weapons, barricaded the town's narrow streets, accusing the county government of trying to disrupt prayers during Ramadan. That is number 1. Tougher measures on the way, says Kagwe. Kenyans should get ready for tougher measures as government enforces measures to contain coronavirus. With the 45 cases announced yesterday, the spotlight remained on Nairobi's Isli, where 29 of the new cases were reported. That's headline number 2. Headline number 3. The PS has defended Afia House over COVID-19 funds. The Ministry of Health has defended itself over how it has been using millions of shillings set aside to fight coronavirus. PS Susan Mochache told MPs yesterday that the budget on how the funds would be used was meticulously prepared to ensure no wastage. Mochache, who appeared before the National Assembly's Committee on Health, provided a breakdown of how the funds have been utilized. And she also explained how the ministry plans to utilize the remaining money from the National Contingency Fund and the National Treasury. Picky, punky.
Okay, so I'd really love to look at what the PS Susan Mochache is saying.
You like that one? Okay.
I'd like to look at that, but because we don't have much more detail on this, we can't really go into it. I'd like to see a bit more detail of what she was saying. I saw that she also presented like a fresh budget, showing that no money has been spent. The story is saying that some money has already been spent. So I think. Because I don't know much.
I
have a lot to say, but I'd like to get more info.
There is, I think, on the PS, there's the what's it called? The response that she had that broke down. So depending now on, there's a lot. Like she went into specifics of what the funds were used for. And the duration, not like printing, for example. She said, after justifying that documentation is key issue against the fight against COVID-19, that printing of travelers' forms, quarantine forms, discharge forms was budgeted at a cost of 9 million for 180 days. So that was the justification for the 9 million. And
how much has been spent?
Includes travel health insurance forms distributed to all ports of entries.
Right.
So that's what was budgeted. What has been spent, there's a table here. No, it doesn't specify on the printing ones. But what I've seen, she has given the duration and the amount for each one of them. So sort of like justifying what has been budgeted. But from this, there's no really on the printing one, for example, she hasn't said if it's been used or not. The 70 million on communication, and they write it in bold that no funds have been spent so far.
Okay.
Discussions on modalities of utilizing these funds are still ongoing.
Okay.
Which is not what was in the initial which was money budgeted.
Initially, there was a table showing this is the budget, explanation, and how much has been spent.
Okay. Then you go to the accommodation of healthcare workers that they had talked about, which was 12 million.
For 30 healthcare workers. Was it 30 or 90 days?
It was
30
for 90
workers,
days.
90 days.
So now her explanation is that so far they've only accommodated that an average of 32 workers have been accommodated per day for the last 4 weeks. The payment process is ongoing for the period utilized, and the rate is 5,000 a day for half-board accommodation.
But where is this happening? So they're actually accommodating healthcare workers. 32 healthcare workers every day.
So, which brings me back to our chain of transmission.
Yeah.
Case 189 that we are talking about is actually a healthcare worker who
in a public facility.
From the report, they say she's a volunteer at the Public Health Emergency Operations Center.
Okay.
And so she was picked from the surveillance testing of healthcare workers. So where she's stationed particularly, I don't know. So if healthcare workers are being accommodated, how did she end up home? Yes, and distributed to the people in.
Or who are these 32? Maybe we should just start. The simpler question is, who are these 32? Where are they based, and why are they being accommodated?
Why did they select them?
Yeah, why these 32, right? Is it quarantine or is it because we know that there are those, for example, in Gara, where a health facility, somebody came in and the health workers had to be quarantined. So is that what we're talking about? Are we saying we are housing our healthcare workers in order to avoid.
To keep them safe and
Yeah.
So,
safe.
from the Ebola response and a response of such magnitude, like now what we're seeing with the pandemic, the ideal situation would be your healthcare workers, because you know they're at high risk.
Yeah.
You know they will come in contact with people who are either suspected or people who've been confirmed. The ideal situation is get separate accommodation where you log into your accommodation with your temperature. In this case, because we know fever is one of the first signs of COVID, and you log out with your temperature so that there's constant monitoring.
Yeah.
You have specific transport to your place of work and back. Because what you want to do is, you know these people are high risk. You want to minimize their chances of spreading the disease from their source, where
To the
they are,
community.
to the community. That is the ideal situation. And that is why, legitimately so, there was a budget to accommodate healthcare workers.
I think this was among the things that we were saying from the very beginning. We started talking about this. We've seen it happening in other countries. In China, they were housing the doctors, the medics, all of them stay here.
Yes.
Kitui, the people who are making the PPEs are staying in a dormitory. So why is it that
And then on 7th
there's a difference between the people and popos?
Is there?
It depends. People outside Afia House, popos inside Afia House, or vice versa.
So on 7th April, and I remember because I was in this press conference, I asked the CS, and Amoth answered and said, we have had discussions with the CS and the PS that now will start accommodating healthcare workers in hotels, and that is an ongoing process. But up to now, it's a story we need to dig into.
So she presented a new document to Parliament yesterday.
Yeah, this is new.
And she's the same person who had presented the other document that was in Parliament.
The other one was, I think, the other one was presented by the CS, I think. It was still her.
It was the PS.
Anyway, she's the accounting officer.
Yep.
Whatever
Yes, she
happens, when you're talking about money,
Yep.
the buck stops with her.
Are we accepting how this looks?
Of course
No.
not. No.
This is ridiculous.
No, of course we are not accepting
That
it.
one individual is going to present two different budgets or
Of
two
course.
different audit
Or
reports
coming to
on
explain
the same
further on
amount
something.
of money.
On one document, it shows, we had a budget of 800 million. We have spent 1.3.
I mean-
on this other second document, it says, no.
not spent any
We have
money at all.
not spent money. We have on this one communication. No money has been spent. We are still working on modalities of how to spend this money. First of all, communication is key to the fight against COVID-19. Explain why you have not even come up with a modality of how you're going to roll out communication for COVID-19.
This is how you continually invite doubt into the
of course.
conversation.
Of course.
This is how you now cement people's belief that there's something
Something-
wrong in there, or that something sinister is going on. Now, if anybody was thinking that there was something sinister going on, you've just now presented it to them on a platter, on a table with all the trimmings and said, here you go.
Here you go.
Knock it out of the park. Because really, less than a week ago, there was a budget. And people were already poking holes in it. Then you come and tell them that actually we didn't spend the money.
We didn't spend the money. We are planning. Like I'm seeing, they're saying the PPs are to be purchased from this report.
So
I think the only one that has been confirmed is the ambulances.
So what is she presenting to Parliament? Is she presenting a wish list, a budget, or is she presenting an expenditure list? What exactly is she presenting? What is she doing when she goes to Parliament?
From the look of things, I think it's a wish list, like a budget, which had already been presented in another sitting. There's a lot anyway that needs to be clarified, and I wish our story was more elaborate on what actually transpired in Parliament.
Yeah.
Suffice to say that the story can't be more elaborate than that, because obviously what she presented to them was scanty at best. You don't tell people that actually, this money that we said we spent last week, we actually
still
haven't spent it.
Yeah.
We are planning to spend it. You didn't say anything the day after, or even the day of, when people were in this uproar. You decided to keep quiet.
Some things have
That
been
was
All they
spent.
did
others
was come
haven't.
and say that they were going to do a detailed
Yes.
report, and then they had now instituted a team, an auditory team
Audit.
that was going to now come and do an analysis.
And
So is this the analysis that they've come up with after all that fancy work?
Maybe because the fuel and maintenance, they're saying no payment has been made to the fuel or maintenance providers.
But is there
so
an
the
invoice?
budget No, the budget. So they say subsequent a budget, 40,000 per week of an estimated 30 vehicles, 14.4 million for 90 days.
Mhm.
So it is just budgeted.
So it's okay.
No money
But
has
is
been
there
lost.
expenditure happening?
According to this report,
Is there
no
an-
money
are
has
we
been
waiting-
spent.
One-
You haven't
1.3
paid out
billion.
yet, but is there an invoice that we're waiting for? For those days, it's okay. I have a bill I haven't paid, but I know I'm going to pay.
So
Yeah, if I've
1.3 billion
budgeted-
is intact.
Clearly-
That's what we're being told.
yeah,
We haven't
but,
spent it yet.
Yeah,
Yes.
That's not the
spent it
point.
yet.
The
Come
point
on.
is, are you going to spend it?
But like if you look at this one for vehicles, no payment has been made to the fuel or maintenance providers. No payment has been made. Doesn't say will
Consumption has not happened.
exactly.
You see, that's where the point
Exactly.
is. No, we have not yet paid. This is kawaida. We know government does not pay, yes, but you're going to pay at one point
At one
because
point.
you have already
Plan to.
procured those services.
So let's talk
So
about-
have you procured the services yet? That's what you should be telling us.
If
We
you
have
want to look at the
budgeted.
teas and the
So far,
snacks or
we
whatever
have
that been
spent.
Let me tell you
So
about the
have
tea and
people
snacks.
drank or not?
eh.
Have people eaten the snacks
so-
or
Have there
not?
been meetings?
Have there been meetings?
The tea and snacks has so far been supported by people of goodwill, which lasted to the end of April 2020.
Okay.
The proposed budget under the World Bank support will be used prudently to complement the kind donation or support from the tourism sector for the next 90 days.
Okay.
So far, no funds have been spent.
So the 4 million that they said they spent previously,
It's
they
from
actually-
goodwill.
Oh, get out of here.
So there was a budget. There was a budget that these various teams are going to be given tea and snacks. Okay. And
Of
then
4 million.
And then people of goodwill, like we saw, Sarova Hotels has already come up and said we are going to help feed our healthcare workers in this public facility. So we are, basically what they are saying is because Sarova came and gave tea, so we have not spent money for tea.
No, but then you put 4 million on the budget. You don't budget goodwill donations. Goodwill donations are never in a budget.
Now the 4 million was just in case. I mean, if Sarova hadn't come, we'd have
We
spent
would
4
have
million.
spent 4 million.
How much has Sarova actually?
Do you know that
They
on the
haven't
day
said.
that this budget came out in the newspaper, we saw on TV Sarova packaging the lunch?
Yep.
Or the tea or whatever it was. So you can't tell us that.
And
Sorry.
Sarova is giving food. It goes beyond tea and snacks. Tea and snacks for whatever 4 million shillings. I think sometimes when you think about how the government treats us,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
start crossing over into Tanzania and you look at yourself and you think serikali ya Kenya inaponiangalia mimi
Eric, I told
haioni
you yesterday.
binadamu kiumbe ambaye anaweza fikiria. Serikali ya Kenya inaponiangalia inaona paipai. Naniita Elizabeth Anne.
Elizabeth yani.
Mimi sio Eli Creative. Mimi ni Elizabeth Anne, paipai la kiume, umri wa miaka 43. Na hili paipai liko na virusi vya corona. Hata halifai kuliwa na binadamu wala mnyama. Hili paipai Elizabeth Anne aka Eli Creative halifai hata kuwa humu nchini. Hii serikali ya Kenya inapokuangalia wewe haioni wa Kenya, inaona shamba zima la paipai.
Paipai.
That's it, though.
That's it. That's
That
it.
you saw, yesterday, Eric, I told you alternate universe. That alternate universe that they talk about where
This is
things
it.
up. This is it, right here, where we're operating, existing alternate universe. For somebody to have the guts, and it's really gutsy to be able to tell you, actually, you know what? Because that's what she's saying. What you saw last week is actually not the case.
Wewe ndu wako, wewe ni paipai.
Clearly. Paipai.
Nakwambia wewe ni paipai na uko na virusi vya corona.
Do you want me to continue telling you what she reported?
No, I already have a headache. But please.
Endelea.
Niendelee.
Elizabeth yani anasikiza.
So Elizabeth
Eric is tapping his foot. He's getting annoyed.
I can see that clearly. So she says by the Ministry of Health, as at 30th April, through KEMSA, distributed COVID-19 related products whose cost value is 107 million to respective counties. These are 3-ply face masks for 9 million, surgical masks for 3 million, disposable protective clothing, the coverall, 2.6 million, goggles, 352,000, gloves, 233,000, surgical gloves, sterile ones, for 22 million, alcohol-based hand rub for 160,000, N95 masks for 5 million, complete PPE kits for 49 million, boots for 329,000, theatre boots, gum boots, So different sizes. There's another one that is size 7 is 2.1 million. Size 8 is 1.7 million. Size 9 is 2.7 million. Size 10 is 2.7 million. These are
The difference
thousands.
is because of size or because of numbers?
Okay,
The
so
units being procured. Like size 10, we know the number of healthcare workers who have a big
size
foot.
10. So size 10, there are 1,740 for 2.7 million. Size 9, 1,730 for 2.7 million. So it depends on the the quantity.
The quantity.
Yeah, then the natural gloves, a pack of 50. Those are 42,000. Infrared thermometers, 147,000.
Has this
10
money
of
been
them.
spent? Have we purchased?
Yes. They are distributed by KEMSA. So the infrared thermometers, 10 of them for 147,000.
Mm-hmm.
That means one is
So
14,700
shillings.
Then ventilators, one ventilator for 3 million shillings. That sounds about right. And then there's a suction machine for 62. Those comes to 107 million. So it would be good to hear if the counties and the healthcare workers have received these things.
So this money has been spent.
This money has been, the supplies have been bought, 107 million. KEMSA has distributed to the counties.
Okay.
So there should not be any complaints about we don't have gloves, we don't have PPEs, because the PS says they have been distributed.
So what the good PS has done now is going to say, all right, so the budget I presented to you last week, not everything has been spent. We have spent some, we have not spent others. Others we had planned to spend, but we got lucky that some good Samaritan came and donated, so we have not spent yet. Others we have not yet paid. Not that we haven't spent, but we haven't paid yet. And this is where she just lives in a cloud of smoke, confused, walks away, goes and spends the entire amount as initially planned.
While
Talking
you're
of
still trying to figure out-
talking
Yeah.
of donations, PPEs have been donated by
Jack Ma.
and different other
Different
quarters.
yes, very true.
So
They
we
were
should
not
be
enough.
having
That's
But
what she'd like to
so
claim.
plus the donations and this ones, we should be fairly okay.
Yeah. No healthcare worker should be saying we haven't received PPEs.
We should probably hear from healthcare workers and hear what they have to say. Because, well, vitu kwa ground inaweza kuwa ni tofauti.
Wewe, mimi na wengine
Elizabeth
milioni
yani.
47 pai. Serikali ya Kenya inapokuangalia inaona pai.
Elizabeth yani.
Inachukua sample zako inapeleka kwenye maabara ya taifa, inapimwa, unapatikana wewe uko na corona. In fact, sasa serikali hata haikuzungumzii tena, haikuongeleshi.
Oof.
You have no capacity to think.
That
To
is
consume the information.
That is what is being presented, unfortunately,
Yeah.
to Kenyans at this point. That, you know what, we're going to do it for you, and whether what we present is a shoddy show of results, you're going to have to accept it anyway, because normally you don't really think about what the result is, right?
You
That's
ask
what
a
you're
couple
being
of-
told.
yeah, you ask a couple of questions.
We're going to smother it in innuendo, and then you're not going to think about it anymore, and then we're satisfied. We go ahead and do whatever we want. You can come and present a document to us this week. We ask a few questions, poke holes in
You
it,
go and
and you
change-
tell us that
you
we're
mod-
going to get a steering committee to look into it. Then you come back and change the story, and nobody's supposed to ask questions. If this is not movies, this is not Hollywood. What do you call it? Riverwood. If that's not what this is, I don't know. This is a movie. It cannot be real life. It can't be.
It's a farm. It's a farm, and it's not an animal farm. It's a pawpaw farm. At least animals, you
Today
can
you
make
have
some
something
sound.
against purpose.
Yeah.
Today,
Animals
purpose
you
are
can make some
innocent.
sound, and I know the sheep can actually hear your sound and follow your instructions. Pawpaws, you don't speak to pawpaws. You do what you want to do.
You speak to them.
You harvest them
whether
when you
they
want to harvest
respond or
them.
not.
You chop them up when you want to chop them up. You put up a fire and
Burn down the whole
burn
thing.
down the
if you
whole
want.
thing if you want to. There's no discussion. There's no back and forth. If you decide that these purposes don't mean anything to you, then they don't mean anything to you. It's all about you. Anyway, that's just one more headline
Okay,
as we
we've
go to
got
the
to
top
look.
of the hour.
We have to look at the flooding that's happening in many parts of the countries.
Yeah.
On the front page of The Nation, hundreds of families displaced by floodwaters in Budalangi, Busia County, and they're living in makeshift structures alongside an erected dike. Heavy rains continue to wreak havoc in western Nyanza and South Rift, and interestingly enough, in central part of Kenya as well. It's a disaster. Several people have died. Over 100,000 have been displaced. Leaders from Nyanza and western regions want the government, which they are part of, to declare the floods a national disaster and rush in with help for suffering Kenyans. It's quite a mess. And what we're saying is that the rain is not abating. People have already been flushed literally out of their homes because of the raging floods. And it continues. We have the Met telling us that the rains are going to continue well into May. This is not a disaster waiting to happen. This is a disaster that we're currently...
It's already ongoing. The photo
in.
on the Nation, the front page of the Nation, is just basically showing that. Look at the kind of makeshift structures that people have come up with. A lot of your belongings are out there being ravaged by the rain. And
this also is a huge recipe for a lot of disease from things that we will see probably from cholera to typhoid to diarrhea and dysentery because of people living in water.
Yeah.
Basically. Mm-hmm. Everything is happening in this water. And this is happening in Kenya right now.
It's unfortunate. And it's not just, one area. It's not just Budalangi.
No.
It's everywhere else. This morning you're telling us about traffic on Mai Mahiu. What's happening in Mai
Mahiu?
Mahiu
is, looking at it will be submerged. The Narok Mai Mahiu highway, or the bridge right there, they're still working on it. Part of it had been flushed away by floods. So the town Mai Mahiu town has been cut off from people who are trying to get there because this road has not been completed. And they're trying to complete it while the rains are still coming down. There are bridges all over Western Kenya that have been washed away. The roads don't exist anymore. Roads in Nakuru are erupting because they've been water has seeped in and they're blowing up.
That's unfortunate. We're coming to the top of the hour and we'll continue this conversation into the next hours coming up. Rain does not fall on one roof alone. That is today's proverb. It's a Cameroonian proverb. Rain does not fall on one roof alone. You want to look at it from the negative side or the positive side. It could be blessings or it could also be a curse. Good morning. 7 o'clock.
That we would see coming down through Cabanas. It's not so bad though. We don't see as a heightened level of traffic as we did a couple of days ago. But for now, that's what it does look like. Approach with caution, guys, especially where you see large pools of water. For those who are in Nakuru, that part of the rift, North Rift now and into Western Kenya, we're looking at Kisumu, we're looking at Kakamega, Bungoma, Busia, large pools of water. You've been advised not to drive into them because you don't know how deep they are, number one. Number two, don't walk into pools of water either, because we've seen many cases now where water basically is carrying people away because you don't know how soft the earth is right now. So please, what we're asking in this session is to be very, very, very careful and approach with caution. All right, we'll let you know what traffic looks like in other parts of the city. We'll take a look at Mombasa and Kisumu in a short while. Spice FM KE, let's know what you see and we'll spread the word.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth,
2.5 minutes
Kenyan
after
by
7.
choice,
Thank you very much for
communications
tuning
expert,
in the Situation
Pan-African.
Room this morning. We have Dr. Mercy Korir, who is our guest host for the season. C.T. Muga is away for the week. Now, Dr. Mercy, we are seeing this story in the Standard, page 4, 6, and 7, the deadly chain of transmissions.
Yes.
Looking at how these transmissions, basically when The government says that Kawangware is a hotspot, or Isli is a hotspot, or Old Town is a hotspot. Explain that to us, because that's what you've done in these stories.
Okay. So remember when we said each confirmed case is a story?
Yeah.
That that one person tells you how the infection came in, how it spread, and what measures you can do to break the chain. So here what we are seeing, like the Kawangware transmission, how that whole story started, is one case 189 who was symptomatic. So case 189 is a volunteer, or has been a volunteer at the Public Health Emergency Operations Center. This is the nerve center of our coronavirus response. So this particular...
Where is it?
It's based at Afia House with chains of rapid response teams.
Okay.
They have the officers who are stationed at the mandatory quarantine facilities. They're the people who go around when they need to do contact tracing and pick people. So it's a whole chain of very many people. It's not like one room with people.
So
but
it's not like a committee. It's basically...
No. So there's the committee at the top, but then there are the rapid response teams, various teams of people.
Okay.
So this is one of those persons, a volunteer, in that Public Health Emergency Operations Center. And so this person was picked up during the surveillance testing for healthcare workers. She was symptomatic. So remember that these healthcare workers, like you and I, still go back home. So in the process, before she had been identified, she'd gone back home.
Symptomatic means she had the symptoms. She was coughing. She had a fever. Was one or all.
Yeah, one or all or
a few.
One, yeah, or some. Yes. So she'd gone home. So going home, she has 2 children in the house.
Yep.
And then one of her friends came and spent the weekend at her house.
Okay.
And then there's another friend of hers whom she met. So the 2 children have not spread to anyone else, and one of her other friends did not. But one of the 2 of her friends got infected. She has a house somewhere. She's living.
Friend went back home.
Yes. So she has a daughter in the house and a niece who's the brother's daughter got infected. Her neighbor in the same flat apartment got infected. Her neighbor has a son and daughter who got infected.
Wow.
That is just one wing of the chain.
Wow.
So
go from back this one lady, she goes back home, she infects her 2 children and her 2 friends.
Yes.
One of the friends infects 2 children, a daughter and a niece. And a neighbor.
Yes.
Neighbor infects 2 children.
Exactly. Then we go back to case 189, the healthcare worker, who had a house help, a day scholar house help who comes and goes.
Okay.
So the house help goes back home, meets her husband, her 3-year-old twin sons, and her sister, 21-year-old. And that is how the infection on that
all
side.
Have tested positive.
Yes.
So basically, from the contact tracing of this one person who works at Afia House, volunteer health worker, we have how many cases are these? Are it 12? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 14.
One person.
One person
14.
Leads to 14 infections.
And she had 29 contacts in total. So out of 29, 5 direct contacts got infected, and out of those 5 led to the other 9. And so this chain, from the Afia House document, this chain ended there. But remember...
Fortunately, because many of these are children. We can say
not because they did not, from their own chain, they have not continued, because the husband to the house help, for example, where does he work? Who has he met? Who are his contacts? Because for everyone you have identified, you have to list contacts. So this is where they ended it. It doesn't mean it's necessarily where the infection ended.
Okay.
Because you still need to trace the husband, you still need to trace the 21-year-old sister, this other neighbor,
the other friend,
the daughters and niece, you need to trace and find out. So from these ones, we need to know who else is in that chain. So that is Kawangware for you.
Wow.
And for me now, this is now the part where I fault government, because as we said, we asked them, are you accommodating healthcare workers separately? And this is the kind of thing that clearly you can foresee. And if there's 12 million, according to the PS, that has been, the first report said it's been used. This current report said nothing has been used. Process is ongoing. Anyway, there's 12 million budgeted. Why can't we accommodate our high-risk healthcare workers?
It's possible to do this.
Exactly. Because then you wouldn't have this story. You'd
All
only
right.
be having one person.
Are we able to tell how case 189 got infected?
That
Basically, here we can just
you can
use assumptions and extrapolation.
Yes.
Because of where she works, then she has also maybe visited, these quarantine facilities,
Yes.
or one of the people that she works closely with had visited a quarantine facility,
Yeah.
came and she got it from a co-worker, took it home, took it into the community.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And that is why you have the cluster community
But
spread.
also-
The cluster spread, the community spread.
Something stands out for me here, that she was symptomatic.
Yeah.
So if she was presenting with symptoms, why wasn't it picked up earlier, or even had to be put into quarantine immediately? You appear like this, we are testing you as we wait for the results. First of all, go into.
So we this is now we are doing a postmortem of this thing.
Yeah.
If you go back to when we started the emergency response, when we identified our first case on day 12, it was announced on 13th March. Your team of healthcare workers that you know you want to be on the front line, you test first.
That's where you start.
That's where you start. You test first to have a baseline of their health status. And it's not just testing. You also filter them out the same way we're saying vulnerable communities, people at high risk. So if your healthcare workers are elderly, they shouldn't be on the front line. If your healthcare workers have other pre-existing conditions, they shouldn't be on the front line. So that you have your healthy people. So that's where you start. Then you test, you have a baseline. And then you accommodate separately, as we said, so that you are able to be monitoring and seeing, because you know the kind of risk that they're exposed to and what that would mean to the community. So you put them separately and then you monitor, because given healthcare workers are the people who are most likely to pick this infection. So you need to be cognizant and alive to that and put in measures to make sure that if they get, or when they get, they do not spread to the rest of the community. So that is where you should have started. So then this person, whether they were symptomatic or have no symptoms, it wouldn't have been a high risk to the rest of the community. So that's why for me, this is a very serious situation. It's very worrying. And this is just one healthcare worker. How many healthcare workers do we have in our isolation units at Mbagathi, at KUTRH, Kenyatta University, at KNH itself?
The ones going to
in
visit
Mombasa.
the quarantine centers.
Yeah.
Yes.
It would be
How
important
many?
to know if this healthcare worker was amongst the people who were tested from the general population.
This was from the surveillance testing of healthcare workers.
Workers.
Now when they started testing of healthcare workers,
Right.
which remember was already a
Weeks.
month
Yeah.
later.
Ahead, yes.
Weeks
So this
into
is why
this.
this is posing a. This is why
It is
it's
a pro-
posing a problem.
It is.
Yeah,
It is.
because this happened, and then everybody else is being tested
Later.
3-4 weeks later.
Yep.
How many people? If we're looking at one person having got 29 contacts and then 14 people being infected as a result of that, how many other people from that same pool then
Yep.
we have infected others, and we still have people basically walking around,
Untested.
number one, untested, number two, not having gone into any kind of quarantine, nothing.
No symptoms.
no symptoms.
So we could be meeting them in the matatu we are boarding.
Right, Dr. I think it's I think also there's a misconception here, and that is, if I may have COVID, I may have been infected with COVID, and I am asymptomatic, that if the next person gets it, that they too will be asymptomatic.
Of course not.
What?
Everybody. Now this is where everybody for their own and God for us
God
all.
for us all.
Because if I get it, now it depends on my immune system, on my general well-being, health, and everything. Because initially, and I think it is still the case, in China, in the global north, they were looking at children being not really having suffered so much from the coronavirus. So the question was, are children asymptomatic or they have mild symptoms? And then, if your child comes and they want to hug you, you're not going to refuse. And they'll want to sit at the lap of their grandparents and tell stories and whatnot. So the question was, are children carriers such that they are now transmitting to the people who are elderly or the people who are vulnerable? So it's the same case here. You may have no symptoms, but when I get the virus, I may be the person who gets critically ill and actually dies from it. So here it's, you never know.
I mean, I can't say because it's not vested in any proof, but going by these indications that we have seen here, and if mass testing is then being rolled out in the country, I dare say that there are very many people who do have COVID already. They've not been tested, so you don't know in terms of the numbers. But it seems that we're testing, Kenya's testing at a very slow rate. If we want to do any kind of comparative analysis with other countries, testing at a very slow rate.
It is.
People are walking around with infections of COVID. By the time they get tested, if they do, because then we still have this whole other kettle of fish where people are really not ready to get tested because they don't want to have to go into mandatory quarantine and pay for it. But if they do get into the mass testing phase, you're going to find a huge upsurge in the numbers. Then the contact tracing is even going to be more. It's going to be more. It's going to be more. Hopefully as precise as possible. But it's going to be crazy because then you're trying to find out. In the last 3 weeks, these individuals, whom have they come in contact with over the last month?
Can you even remember?
Can you even remember where you went?
Yes,
2 weeks ago.
No. Because you have to look at the last 2 weeks. Who did you meet? Where did you go? What did you do? It's crazy. It's crazy.
But I think a lot of us are asking, we've had donations for test kits. We've had Kemri saying what their capacity is. We've had Kemri crying and saying we can do this. However, we need support from the government in terms of the kits. We have the capacity to test between 13 and 16,000 per day across our centers. We can do this. This is what they said. Why aren't we doing it? Where exactly is the problem for us to understand?
We go back to the presentation in Parliament because all of this boils down to money. The testing or the process of testing is not just at the laboratory stage. You have to, not like what we're seeing in Kawangware, and we should give credit where it's due. The government, at least in the last 2 days, in my opinion, has tried, because we're seeing that our testing per day is like 1,000 compared to initially where we're doing 300, 600. So I think they are sort of improving. So your testing and your testing capabilities start from sample collection. Who do you have to go out in the field to collect samples? And now we've seen from Kawangware, we've seen people are lining up, the healthcare workers are there, they're collecting samples. And then from there, how do you get them to the lab? The lab process is fairly straightforward because it's automated. You prepare your samples, you load them in the machine does its work. In 30 minutes, you have your results. If you're doing the manual process, it's about 4 hours to 6 hours, you have your results. But the automated one will do 3.5 hours for the first batch, and then after that, every 30 minutes, you're able to have results. That's why Kemri confidently says they can do, one of the machines can do at least 2,000 per day. So if you multiply that by the 5 centers or so that it has,
that's where you get that 13,000 that they were talking about.
They can do quite a lot. So the lab process is okay. Then now the other end, how do you release your results? We've seen people haven't actually gotten their results. You just told Latif you're positive, and that's it. You have no proof. So how is that process? How long does that process take? Because if within 30 minutes, for example, within 2 hours of testing, I know my result, I will minimize my contacts. But if it's taking 24 hours, within 24 hours, there's a lot that somebody can do. Exactly. So there's all that. So if you look at that whole chain, it has to be addressed for you to be able to do, testing as fast and as soon as possible.
As rigorously and as well as it should be done. 17 minutes after 7, this is the situation. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. We are looking at the transmission, and this is the chain of transmissions in the country of coronavirus. Dr. Mercy has just explained to us how one case ended up with 14 positive cases in Kawangware, and we'll be looking at others in Isli, looking at also in the coast and what's happened there in Kilifi as well. Let's first take a look at the weather. Good morning, 18 minutes after 7.
Mostly cloudy conditions in Nairobi this morning. Rains are threatening to come down at any point. We'll see highs of 23. Taking a look then into Nyeri, it's cloudy this morning at 17 degrees. We'll see highs of 23 and lows of 16. Nakuru is mostly cloudy as well. Rain is coming in soon. Highs of 26 and lows of 15. Okay, in Eldoret this morning, it's mostly cloudy conditions. We'll see highs of 22 and lows of 13. In Kisumu, 21 degrees and mostly sunny. Coming in with the rain later on, though, with highs of 27 and lows of 15. Mombasa this morning still continues to rain at 25 degrees. We'll see highs of 27 today. Malindi is raining as well. 26 degrees high and 27 degrees high and lows of 20. In Dar es Salaam at 24 degrees, the rain has started as promised, and we'll see thunderstorms later with highs of 29 and lows of 24. Johannesburg at 8 degrees, clear skies and sunny conditions all through. We'll see highs of 21, but it'll get chilly though to lows of 7. And for now, in Lagos at 28 degrees this morning, we'll see highs of 33 and lows of 26 with clear skies all through.
Online, mobile, and on radio. Instagram at Spice FM KE.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Everything nice.
20 past 7. This is a situation. So
Spice up
Dr.
your
Mercy,
life.
Tell us about the case where now.
Let's
Mature,
look-
intelligent talk
Then
every
we'll come
morning.
back.
Spice up
So
yourself.
Kilifi, the index case was case 14 that was identified. This case 14 is early on. Should be within the first week. Yeah, within the first week of the coronavirus pandemic. So case 14 in Kilifi met case 48 in Rabai. Then case 48 in Rabai met case 141. Remember, the difference in the numbers is because contact tracing, testing and whatnot happens in various parts of the country.
Okay.
So depending on what time you are identified, you are assigned a case number. Then case 141 met, who was in Mombasa, now met case 187, 188 and 193 people in Mombasa. That is where this is not where the chain ends, but rather where the description has ended. 187
So
has their
one
own
person had tested positive in Kilifi.
Kilifi.
Then we traced their contacts. We find that they had met somebody in Rabai. That person tests positive.
Uh-huh.
We also find out that this person who was tested positive in Rabai had come into contact with somebody who is in Mombasa
Yes.
who was tested positive.
Exactly.
We asked the person in Mombasa, who had you come into contact with? We identify 3 people who test positive.
Then that chain should now continue.
Yeah, but for purposes of this particular illustration, it ends.
It ends there. So we go back to case 14. Case
Kilifi.
14 in Kilifi, yes, had a driver who tested positive. That's case 15. Then they had also met case 40, who was a KPA staff. Unfortunately, this staff died. He had also met a case 28 in Rabai, a case 23, and a case 30. Now we come back to case 40. So the other 1, 2, 3, 4, the other 4 people, their transmissions fortunately ended there. But case 40
This person in KPA.
in KPA had met, this should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 other people. This 8
Who
other
tested
people
positive.
who tested positive. Case 140, from that list, infected 2 other people.
Right.
Case, this was the one in Siaya who died, was case 193, had met, I always keep, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I always have to keep counting. 8 other people who tested positive. Then there was another case, 136, who now met other 4 people. Then we also have a case 166, who unfortunately died and had 5 other contacts. So this is a whole chain of, I think this one 19 people.
What is the status?
Who you have to now also look at
who
they
who
ha-
have also come
Exactly.
into contact with.
You know, we
Exactly.
saw
So the
in
tree basically grows. What's the
The tree
status
grows.
of our initial Kilifi person, case 14? Tested negative afterwards?
Yeah,
So this person
is well now.
had contracted COVID. They've recovered.
Yeah.
But because of the people that they had come into contact with, we have seen 4 people dying.
Yes, 4 people died.
So it's very possible the numbers that we saw before, where they said that in 24 hours, literally, one person could go up then infecting 1,500 people. Not necessarily because they went and had direct contact with them, but
Yes.
as a result of them talking
Yes.
and coming in contact with other people, and
Exactly.
those people contact
Exactly.
others. So it's possible to see that widespread, which is, I mean, some of the cases that we've seen in the US and Italy, for example, that's exactly what happened. One person attends a funeral, infects somebody else,
Yeah.
that entire funeral gathering now goes to their homes. So you see that one person could come, and in 24 hours, 1,500 people have been.
Case 31 in South Korea went to church.
Right.
And that is why South Korea, the
Flew
cases
through the roof.
soared.
Right. So if we're looking here at Kenya, then, Dr. Korir, and we say, like now, this one person, I think the last one you're giving of
Kilifi.
Kilifi.
who infected 4 people, right? And those 4 turned positive.
He
Actually-
directly infected 5.
Directly
Yes.
infected 5.
Directly infected 5.
6, Dr.
And did
6.
they
Oh,
all
yeah,
co-
6.
They all came out
6.
positive? Right.
Yeah.
Now,
as it directly, because they have many contacts, but the ones who turned positive are 6.
6.
Having come into direct contact
Contacts
with
with
them.
them.
Right.
6.
So out of the 6, 1 ended up starting the issue in Mombasa.
Yeah.
Yes.
The other 5, 1
Ended
started the transmission in KPA.
KPA.
Now, is it possible to really take this tracing to the end? Is it possible to
It
do
is.
that and say
It
By
is.
to
testing
the
everybody.
yes, by testing everybody, saying to the very last person that you could have come in contact
It's a
with.
long chain,
It's a
though. I
very
think,
long
It is
chain,
a long
and that's
chain.
why
The
the possible
best way
solution
is-
is to test everyone
or even lock.
or lock down.
It's actually just locked
The
for
way
at
you
least
stop
2 weeks.
these people from move is
Yeah.
ensure everybody stay where you are.
Because the
Say-
contact tracing will not take you to the end.
Yeah.
You will not be
You'll
able to
not
find
finish.
because it could have
You will
been,
come back.
It could have been it could have been somebody in a matatu and that person was holding a child. They went to the market, bought something, did M-Pesa, bought airtime, did something else. It could but can you find each and every one of those individuals?
Because as Eric said, stay put for like, let's say, two weeks, because we know the incubation period is 2 weeks. Within those 2 weeks, do something. Within those 2 weeks, do testing everywhere where it is a problem. Within those 2 weeks, isolate everyone that you have found to be positive and quarantine everyone else who is their contact.
Yep.
And you give them 2 weeks, let's say 21 days. That's why when the partial lockdown, curfews and everything started and the restrictions of movement, the question was, okay, fine. What are you doing inside that lockdown?
Yeah. During
Because
that lockdown,
if you're pussyfooting, for example, on testing, this is what you get. Because people will still, was it here that we were saying that you have only limited transmission at night.
At night.
during
But
the
during
day,
the day,
During the days when people are even
it's
more
free to
active,
move.
All over the
crying out
place.
loud.
it's
Exactly.
free to move.
This is the thing, because now, I think Eric said on Monday that we're a bit late for total lockdown. Because
It's Dr. who was saying.
Oh, it was Daktari. Because we've spread it. If anything, it has already spread. It has already gone far.
Yeah.
So one of the measures now then is to do mass testing. But then I do think that mass testing is compulsory now. However,
Although I still
they
think
need to remove.
I still think we need to lock down.
Our resources are limited.
Yeah, the mass testing. We will not be.
We
able
will not
to
do mass testing. Even the best of country, I think the US is the one that I think as of yesterday it was at 7 million. I haven't seen what tests they've done today.
New York alone has done 1 million tests.
So let's say they've done 10 million. They have a population of 300 million. That's a drop in the ocean. And then remember, us guys here in the last hour we were talking about the accounting officer in the Ministry of Health, the principal secretary, giving explanations on how money has been spent or how money has not been spent. So if we are not clear on our budgets and what we are spending it on, then testing, which requires a lot more resources, not just because we're not going to rely on donations. Here we need to do our own purchases. If you need to go to Roche, to Abbott, whoever it is, to give you a discounted price so that you do mass testing, you need to do it. But you have to put money. You have to put money there.
On paper, the strategies that the government has in place, on paper, very good. Initially say, let's lock down, let's identify the hotspots, let's move in there, let's start mass testing. Targeted mass testing. If this targeted mass testing, for example, in Kawangware had started earlier, or the targeted mass testing of healthcare workers had started from day one. We have case number 1, case number 2. Let's first of all look, all right, start testing and start isolating our healthcare workers and ensuring that our healthcare workers are not mixing with the community, especially those that are dealing directly with people who are at high risk. People in quarantine. Everybody who works with people in quarantine, in these quarantine facilities, should have been isolated for a while. Everybody who worked in Mbagathi should have. On paper, I'm sure it was there. On paper, I am very sure. If you look at those needs, you'll find it was somewhere there. Issues of money, who's going to pay for it, delayed these things, or they made sure that these things are put
or a wait and see.
Wait and see situation. Now we cannot do testing of 47 million Kenyans. That is fact.
It's not going to work.
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 We are talking about, all right, so we are seeing this is a hotspot called Isli. All right. What are we doing now to ensure that these cases that could be in Isli are also contained within Isli or in Kawangware or in Old Town?
Let's look at that Isli that you're talking about.
So can we do that after we look at traffic?
Okay.
So we can get into this, take a look at traffic, come back, we look at Isli and how transmission within Isli started, how it has progressed within Isli. And I'm sure it's still from the same Nairobi that we've gone outside of Nairobi and gone into other counties. Same way of lack of proper containment measures and a back and forth. Joho says, let's lock down. Government says, well, maybe not, maybe yes, maybe not. Money, somebody's still wondering, how am I going to make money out of this thing? 7:30. Good morning. This is a Situation Room. In the room this morning, Dr. Marcy Korir, Nduoko, and Eric Latif. Let's take a look at traffic.
All right, let's take a look at Jogo Road this morning, where there seems to be a little bit of a mess because there are riots and police on place. Riots then between the officials at the traders at Bama Market and the market officials grabbing their parking bay. So on the roads right now, there's a bit of an uproar between them, and police have shown up at the area. But that affects traffic. So if you're leaving on Jogo Road or you're approaching Jogo Road, that means you need to do so with caution until that situation is taken care of. Again, on Jogo Road, there's a bit of an issue between traders and officials of the market, so you need to be very, very careful. Okay, looking at other parts of the city for now, Mombasa Road moving a little bit slowly right around Cabanas, but you'll be fine right after General Motors. On Thika Road, getting to the Pangani underpass, yes, again, it's bumper to bumper, guys, this morning. We don't know how long that's going to last, but you should be able to get out soon enough. Tell us what you see. If you see something we should know about, Spice FMKE on Twitter.
Let's take a look at what happened.
So Isli started in Parklands. So Parklands had case 335. The source of case 335 is not elaborated here, but case 335, a lady infected her sister, two of her sisters actually, who became case 336, 341. And remember, for everyone who we said has been infected, remember there's a whole chain of potential other risks out there that we don't know. Then she also infected two of her daughters, 342 and 331. And then also she infected her driver, who was case 327. Then she has a house help, who is case 373. The house help lives in Isili.
So this one person who's been infected by the original case has infected 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yes.
6 people.
In Parklands.
2 sisters, 2 daughters, driver, and house help.
Yes. So those ones, we don't know where their
What?
webs are, the chains.
Okay.
So the house help lives in Isili, went to seek refuge at her sister's place in Isili. Infected her sister, who is case 374. This is where it's interesting. Case 374 in Isili sells tea. How many people does she meet that she
So
knows
this
and
is the
doesn't
sister?
know? Yeah.
The sister who's been infected
The sister to the house help.
works at a restaurant, an eatery.
Yeah. And that is why Isili is Isili. Then, interesting thing here, that the chain transmission in Isili is incomplete due to lack of cooperation by cases who may be refugees.
Yeah. So people are bas.
Yeah.
Bana jua Kiswahili. So you basically are going and finding people and asking them, so who have you come into contact with? And
And they don't want to say.
They stay mum.
They don't want to
Sorry,
disclose.
hold on, what now? They don't want to say.
They don't want to disclose
They're-
who
yeah.
they've come into contact with. You know, there's a whole not understanding. Why are you asking me this
Why are you
question? What's going to
asking me?
happen?
This is the thing when the communication comes through. I mean, just when we were speaking earlier, and we talked about a story where gentlemen were standing in their estate, and vehicles roll up. Their neighbor
And this is an estate in Nairobi.
This is an estate in Nairobi. They're standing having an evening conversation, with
Maintaining
their
physical
masks,
distance,
with their
yeah.
masks on,
Okay.
maintaining physical distance. Yes, they were. And then a police vehicle rolls up, an unmarked vehicle rolls up, and then another vehicle rolls up, and they're asking for a certain person, and they give directions. That's where this person lives. So policemen come out in uniform. So you can imagine people are freaked out as it is already.
Of course.
They go ring the bell. The so-and-so live here. Yes, they do. The 2 gentlemen in the unmarked car go back to the unmarked vehicle, enter into it, come out in hazmat suits. Police are still standing at the gate. They go, ask the gentleman to come in, have whatever conversation they had in the home. They now proceed to remove everybody from that house. And they all get into the unmarked vehicle. Everybody by this time has retreated into their compounds, into their gates, and are now peering
Everybody's just speaking
to
from...
find out what exactly is going on here. Which is when now, I assume it's a health worker, now came and explained to the 2 gentlemen who were standing outside, this is what we're doing, this is what happened, we need to then remove this family here because they've been infected, and we have been doing contact tracing, and that's why we came with police. Now, how about having this conversation?
Wait, so it turns out
before
that it's contact tracing that led them to this house.
Yes.
Because one person in this house had come into contact with somebody who was tested positive.
Positive somewhere
Yes.
else. Yeah.
And now everybody in this house could be infected.
So they're taking
So we
them
want to take you
quarantine
into quarantine at KMTC,
or wherever.
Or wherever it is.
somewhere,
Yes.
Somewhere.
some lodging.
Yes. So tell me, do you think anybody in that estate
Will ever
will
speak.
ever speak about where they were? Because you see police, you see people coming out like it's in the movies, then you see them taking these people away, plus nanny, plus young children,
Plus
everyone.
everybody in that house. They leave the house locked, they go.
So think of having
This
this
conversation-
conversation in Isili, where we know.
I'm not going to tell you.
Yeah.
I'll tell you
I won't
either.
tell you.
The way in which it's coming across, unfortunately, there's a huge lapse here. And this is the thing. We're not talking about coddling or pampering people. Just give the right information. Give a little bit of information, because then you give people the power then to be able to share with
Work
you.
with the community.
Work with them.
One of the persons who tested positive that I talked to told me some number called him that you tested positive. So it's not like, if Safaricom calls you now, for example, it says Safaricom. So it's Safaricom calling you. So this is some random number
calls
and then asks, are you so and so? So we need your details. Where do you live? What is the name of your wife and children and parents and whatnot? How are you going to give that information? What's your ID? And we know there are strangers and scammers all over. Of course, they decline to give the information. And then that will be logged in as cases are uncooperative. Yeah.
So what happened?
Eventually, they had to physically come because he declined. So they had to physically actually come and look for him and explain that, we are so and so from the Ministry of Health. This is what we are doing because A, B, C, and D, all of this. Then now it made sense to disclose and give information.
Initially it was a papai treatment. Wewe
Elizabethiana.
Wewe unaishi wapi? Hebu nipatie ID yako haraka.
Yes.
Because niandika ID number.
Exactly.
ID yako ni ngapi? Alafu mnaishi watu wangapi kwa nyumba? Are you going to tell anyone that?
Of course not.
Even if you call and say, nakupigia kutoka Ministry of Health.
Still, how many people can call from the Ministry of Health?
Nakupigia kutoka DCI. Even worse.
You come and show up here.
Kama sisi ni watu wa intelligence. My friend. I'm switching off my phone, throwing it away and walking away as far as possible. I'll cross the Chania border. Heading towards Moyale.
Somewhere.
We laugh, but this is the reality, eh?
It's
so
true.
You can imagine, this is Italy. People are living right there. They'd rather stay in their homes and say, me. I didn't go anywhere.
Yeah, because you may have come into the country illegally, so
Especially
you don't know if
that's other things that will now rear their ugly head.
You're going to expose yourself. You're going to expose everybody else. Maybe your close family members with whom you crossed and they're living here illegally. You don't have enough papers. So somebody's first asking you, "Wapi ID yako?" Of course, I don't have an ID.
Of course, I don't have an ID. So
I'm not going to answer this question.
And you may find yourself in more trouble than just the virus.
COVID.
You'd rather take your chances with COVID.
We saw the video going around a couple of weeks back. You remember the time the cops went and wanted to carry some two ladies into a waiting car because, contact tracing, wewe unajua mambo ya COVID, and people came milling around and they were asking themselves, ni nini mnachukua watu? Mambo ya contact tracing ya COVID. Tunataka kuwapeleka quarantine. You mishandle this whole thing, and this is what happens. You find a community that is uncooperative. In fact, we are very fortunate that we are seeing all these people, the kind of tree that we're able to build. It shows that Kenyans are willing to work with you.
Yeah.
Just come with the right information. If you drive into an estate and you're driving into an estate and asking, so-and-so, we're looking for so-and-so.
And then you are in an unmarked vehicle.
Then you ring the bell, and soon after you ring the bell, someone comes, does so-and-so live here? Yes. Ako hapa. Suits. And you're walking in and saying, now so-and-so has tested positive and you've come into contact with them. That whole explanation of why do you need to remove people from their home where they are self-contained and take them into another center, a quarantine facility. What's the importance of that? Colonel Cyrus Aguna, the government spokesman, was telling us the amount of information and awareness in the community is not enough. But you should be able to assess. You're walking into an estate where you're finding people who live in their own home and it's well organized. You can have a conversation with them and just assess and know these guys. Work with the Nyumba Kumi. Is there a proper structure in this community? Yes. Is there a chairman of the estate? Yes. Call the chairman. Call the estate committee.
They're organized.
Tell them this is what we've done. We have come here because this particular person came into contact with, and it's a highly this everybody else here is at high risk of getting, but we don't know. We're going to come and test. We'll be doing daily monitoring, but for now, please help us to help them to stay in quarantine. It's gonna happen.
It's gonna happen. The
once you know that all your neighbors know you're supposed to stay indoors, you'll stay indoors.
You'll stay indoors.
Well, unless people can keep Skype at night, but still there's a gate, and security is aware.
Plus, you'll skip, and then how will you skip? And you need to still live with your neighbors after that. So chances are, if you're skipping for good.
Yeah, it's for
that
good.
You're not coming back there. Let's look at Kibra. Kibra, there's a case 312 who had been unwell for 2 weeks. Then they went to some hospital.
Mm-hmm.
In that some hospital, they were diagnosed with amoeba.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, they were not getting any better. They went to another clinic in Westlands, where they went to a clinic in Westlands where they were diagnosed with some chest infection.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, no, wait. They were going to the clinic in Westlands. The doctor was not there, so went to see the doctor in Lavington.
So first clinic Kibra,
Yes,
second clinic Westlands,
But the doctor was not there, so they went to the doctor's.
third
in
Lavington.
Yes,
in another clinic, another
Yes.
facility.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So that one, they went to Lavington on Sunday 19th April. But then they were diagnosed on 22nd April. This particular doctor hasn't been traced.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. 312 has a husband
Mm-hmm.
who is case 354. Obviously got infected. Has a sister also,
Mm-hmm.
case 355.
Mm-hmm.
Who got infected. Case 355 has 2 children,
Mm-hmm.
361 and 362, who got infected.
Mm-hmm.
And here, the report says the sister to the initial case remains uncooperative to contact tracing team.
So there's a sister, there's a husband,
And 2 children.
and 2 children. And then there's someone who's uncooperative, and there's a
The
doctor,
sister.
and there's a...
A doctor who hasn't been traced.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm actually even doubting.
And other
this is
healthcare
a-
workers in these particular facilities have...
The-
we are to assume that...
It's still ongoing. The investigations
The
are still
investigation-
ongoing.
Wow.
This was on 22nd April. That's like 2 weeks later.
So this is the thing, because then you still have so many people that would have come in contact with this person while there was refusal to cooperate, etc., etc. Life still goes on
Of course.
for these people
Yeah.
in those
Of course.
particular circles. So
And-
it just continues and continues.
Remember, by the time she was getting diagnosed, that was on 22nd. By the time she was going to hospital on 19th and getting diagnosed on 22nd, she had been unwell for 2 weeks. And that's the time
Diagnosed with
she was
amoeba
going
with-
to get diagnosed with amoeba, which is not there. I don't know, a chest infection. You know, you have been walking around. So obviously, the healthcare workers they met at the first facility
Yeah.
were exposed.
Yeah.
By the time you're going to Westlands and looking for the doctor in Lavington,
Public
there's a problem. And then I'm wondering if this, because you see, as doctors, we are all on the data of the medical practitioners and dentists council.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be hard to trace
Probably
a doctor.
this is not a doctor. Well, probably is not a registered doctor. It's somebody who offered treatment, who calls themselves Daktari, but they...
Yeah, because for me,
They
it
wear a
was
lab coat.
puzzling that a doctor cannot be traced. The government knows where all of us are, all our contacts and everything. So, and if they haven't been traced, where are they? Who are they meeting? What are they doing?
Yeah, and why are they in hiding or are they not? You know, first we really cannot blame any of these people. We cannot blame this lady in Kibra. We cannot blame her for going to seek treatment. We cannot blame her for going to seek treatment in various places because she wants to get well. We cannot blame her for using public means from Kibra to Westlands. We cannot blame her for coming into contact with her neighbors and her friends and her sister and their children. We cannot blame this person. They do not know why their status. Now, here's the other issue though. During this time, this is mid-April, the government has in place all these measures, which is observe social distancing, wash your hands. So all these measures, despite having these measures in place, we are still seeing transmission of cases.
But if you can see, in a household where your husband or your wife,
Yeah,
how are you observing
you
physical
cannot
distancing?
really observe physical. If you're
You
living
have children. How? And then here, it's not like you have COVID, so you need to take extra
Yeah.
precaution.
You don't
So-
know. Maybe to the best of her ability, she had washed her hands every time she was getting into all these places. She had ensured that she's wearing a mask in the matatu. She had ensured that she had sanitized when she got into the clinic. There was a hand sanitizer. You could have done all
All
those
of
things.
those things and
right?
still get infected.
And still end up infecting because of whatever condition you had. You already
Right.
infected your husband, and your sister and your friend.
So still in Kibra, we have 2 other cases. They are unrelated to the lady we've just described. One is a truck driver, and the other one is a security staff at a lab. They are just their own independent cases that were picked out. And their contacts and investigations are still being done. Case 166 and case 209.
But these people are all asymptomatic so far. Apart from, of course, the lady,
the
312.
and 29. So, but here now you see truck drivers. Remember that we are still open to cargo shipping across, moving around, and the security staff. They still have their essential service.
Yep.
How are we protecting them? To protect them from us and
Yep.
us from them.
Yep.
Are we looking at them the same way we are looking at healthcare workers as high risk? Are we looking at them with the same lens and giving them extra protection?
Security officers, obviously not. As you can tell from what we've just had in an estate in Nairobi, security officers just came out of their vehicle, kawaida.
Yep.
It's the healthcare workers that had to wear the suits. And the security officers, well, you guys have guns.
And then give a mediocre explanation after the fact. So, I mean, that also is important. We've talked about the importance of communication through all of this entire time. And, letting people know what is going on is extremely important, especially if you're looking for them to cooperate with you, if then you're looking to really curb the spread of infection. And I think that it's not too late. It's not too late to be really open about this. And I keep going back to that, what we had discussed at the very beginning of all of this, where there was one world expert out of the UK who actually said, with taking all of this away, one of the ways that you're going to be able to fight COVID-19 is through open and honest communication.
True.
Tell people what is happening. Tell them what you expect of them. Just tell them the truth. Be honest about it. That's one of the weapons that we can use to fight this, without which it's going to be very difficult. And we see some of the things that we are seeing now. Can you imagine if somebody really understood the gravity of the situation? They wouldn't hold back in telling you, or truly understood, or really understood what forces were trying to do to help. They wouldn't hold back in the information they would give you. They would be willing to say, actually,
They
you
would
know what,
volunteer
I was
even
in
more
this.
than
They
you
would
need.
volunteer the information. I was here, here, and here. Please actually just go check to be sure. But that's not the case. People are withholding information, which is the opposite of what we want them to do.
And even I'm thinking, if you have tested positive and they've come to check, let's say you say I was in this eatery. If you come to the eatery and ask me, have you ever seen so and so here and whatnot, and you've come in the manner that police hazmat suits and whatnot,
Say no.
of course I'll say no. Because I know the next thing is I'll be whisked away.
It's a
to
natural
somewhere.
reaction for everybody to react this way, which is where we go back into auditing how the government instituted these measures and what it did at those specific points in time. Maybe a proper lockdown would have reduced the movement, completely reduced the movement, be able to isolate the cases, be able to do the proper contact tracing where you're saying, all right, you really did not come into contact with 1,000 people because you were not moving anywhere. So these are the only people that you'd come into contact with. And maybe this is how you got infected in the first place. So we can even be working backwards instead of trying to chase around our own tail, because this is exactly what we are doing now.
Yep.
8 minutes to 8 o'clock. This is the Situation Room. 0719 012 600. Join the conversation. 600. So we've seen how these cases basically are spreading. One person comes into contact with 7 people. Out of those 7 people, let's say 5 test positive or contract the virus. They come into contact each with their own. So we basically just creating a long tree here.
Exactly.
With very many branches of people.
And if you notice, the immediate contacts are the immediate family members.
Yeah.
And so this is partly why I agree with you on a complete lockdown, because if we're in lockdown, it means even if the disease is transmitted from myself to somebody else, it's probably people in my immediate family, people who I live in the same house.
Yeah.
So if we have a lockdown and home-based isolation and quarantine, it means that house will remain with whatever it is in that house.
Yep.
All of us, we will get sick, we will get over it, because most of our people anyway are asymptomatic or mild symptoms. We will be able to contain in that house. When everyone else is well, we'll decontaminate the house and we will have contained it in that household.
House. Yep.
But now when we are still moving around, it means my immediate contact, my children, my husband, they'll go out. They'll meet other people, and so the chain will just continue. And those other people will meet other people, will meet
expanding.
other people. Yeah.
Even saying that you've restricted movement to within Nairobi, you're basically saying that 4 million people can still come into contact with one another.
Exactly.
So you're saying, okay, let's allow these 4 million people to contact it over time. What is this?
I know.
What really?
I hope these tougher measures that the cabinet secretary says they will announce. I don't know if it's a warning to keep us in check, or they'll actually announce. If they announce, I hope the tougher measures on wananchi comes with tougher measures on action on the emergency
Followed up with serious
team.
action.
Yes. With a timeline, with clear targets.
Our good uncle Motahi Kagwe. Oi, Motahi. my uncle. He's basically become like that uncle who nitakuchapa.
And then
you just know, that's what he says.
The first time you'd think atakuchapa.
Hello.
Yep. Owino calling in from Yala. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
We're well,
Fine,
thank you.
thank you. Good morning.
Yeah, thank you. 2 questions for Dr. Mercy. I'm wondering if people have to use masking,
We lost Owino. All right.
Owino.
Hope we can get you back online, Owino. You had some 2 questions for Dr. Mercy. Maybe we'll hear what those 2 questions are.
Can I sort of preempt the first one on masking? And this, personally, it was my fear when they were allowed, like, everyone, when you're in public, wear a mask. Because what would be the immediate reaction for people would be to tone down on the other measures. Masks, and the WHO has not changed this, do not protect you from contracting the virus. Masks will limit the transmission of droplets. If the droplets were to fall 1 meter away, they'll probably just fall close by here. So it just limits, it doesn't stop it. What actually has been proven to work, and we've said this, is washing your hands with running water and soap. If you do not have access to that, then alcohol-based sanitizer. And now, initially, at the beginning of this coronavirus, there was a mad rush for sanitizers. I've seen that it has toned down. People are now using soap and water, which is actually the best. So when we started using masks, everyone, and it became a criminal offense not to have masks, then people are just having masks. They're on their chins, they're on their foreheads, they're on their chests, all over the place. Even government officers have their masks anywhere else but their nose, and covering their noses and mouths.
Yep.
So what happens here is the chances of contaminating yourself from a mask are higher. Because if it's on your chin, it means you keep moving it up and about. You will touch the outside surface. If it had been contaminated by somebody else who had come in contact, or somebody who has COVID, then it means it's on your hands. And then since you have toned down on washing your hands with soap and water, you will at some point contaminate yourself.
Yep.
So masks for me were not an idea explained well to wananchi that, the masks alone will not protect you. You still need to have all those other measures.
All the other measures.
So masks
even for the hand sanitizers, there's some people who just do hand sanitizer and that's it.
And that's it.
Because I've just done this, so it's enough.
It's enough.
To I have used sanitizer.
Exactly.
Or have used now. People are no longer even thinking about how long you need to wash your hand with this soap and water. Just go and wash your hands and move on. How long you take washing your hands. All these measures, we should have continued even using more demonstration,
Exactly.
explaining the reason why we need to do this. But in addition to all the other measures, we may have stopped the other measures too early.
I think so.
A bit too early. Coming up to 8 o'clock. In the next hour, we will be talking about are people going to hospital to seek non-COVID related healthcare services? Remember, people are still falling sick, okay? Are people still going to hospital? Malaria and the rest. Are people going to present themselves? We'll be speaking to the chairman of the Kenya Association of Private Hospitals, Dr. Abdi Mohammed Ladnan, who will be joining us. In the meantime, today's proverb: rain does not fall on one roof alone. Rain does not fall on one roof alone. This is a Cameroonian proverb. Dr. Masi Korir is looking at it from the positive side. Blessings don't just shower on one home. They come to your home and your neighbors. Also, you can look at it from the other side. Misfortune does not just come to one household. It comes to the one household and those in the neighborhood.
When it rains, it pours.
When it rains, it pours, and it doesn't just pour on one roof alone. Keep it right here. You can join the conversation 0719-012-600. This is a situation room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Remember, we are live streaming the show this and every morning on www.spicefm.co.ke. We live stream the show as well on Facebook. This is the first and only radio station that has cameras in the studio that broadcasts and live streams the entire show as it happens. Watch us on Facebook, Spice FM KE, and Twitter at Spice FM KE. Good morning.
Okay, Muranga Road, getting into the city and out of the city. People are back. It's crazy, but this is what it looks like. Joko Road, we still have that situation. So we're asking you to approach with caution. It might take a little bit of time to get into the CBD, but apart from that, it's not too bad. The situation on Mombasa Road getting a little bit easier now, and you can flow through past then General Motors. I don't see any other issues with traffic right now. It doesn't look bad at all. We're going to take a look in Mombasa where it is pretty clear this morning all the way downtown, in and out of the town. We don't have much problems there. Kisumu also at this point, they don't seem to have gotten back to town like people in Nairobi. So you wouldn't have any problems if you need to make a quick nip somewhere this morning. Spice of MKE, anything out of the ordinary, do let us know and we'll be able to tell others.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker, and
this conversation. In the room this morning and this week, we also have Dr. Masi Korir, resident doctor, guest host for the season. C.T. Muga is away for a while. So let's talk about what else is happening in our hospitals, because we've been focusing so much on
COVID.
On COVID. Are people actually now seeking treatment in other facilities?
initially, when we announced the first cases, I remember during those times I had what was I doing? I think I was covering something in one of the hospitals anyway, and it's one of the hospitals I'd worked in before. And whereas before the parking would be full, there'd be many people walking in and out of the emergency department with children or, all manner of things. There was hardly anyone, like in the waiting area where you'd have even 30 people waiting. I think there were like 5 people. So there were very few people coming in. And then when I talked to my colleagues in the other places, they're like, workers actually are reduced. The people who have their own private clinics were wondering, where are people? People always have issues. They need to see a doctor because of A, B, C, and D. And then all of a sudden, the numbers had gone down. People were not going to the facilities or looking for doctors. So people with chronic diseases, or let's say diabetes, hypertension, that is fairly well controlled, were just consulting their doctors on phone. I know some put up some telework where you can see your patient, because sometimes you need to see your patient to make a proper opinion and judgment. So all of these things were happening, but in the hospitals themselves, nothing much was happening. And so for me, the question that I was asking was, does it mean that there are no longer accidents happening on the road, or have they reduced because people are not moving much? Does it mean people are not getting heart attacks? They're not getting kidney failures because of one or two reasons? People are not getting strokes? Where are women delivering? Because when a baby wants to come, they actually want to come. You cannot say wait until after COVID. Cancer, for example, it will not say, okay, you have a pandemic, let me wait. It will continue. So what's happening to those people who need the other healthcare services? Where are they going? What are they doing? How are they? And so, yeah.
It's a conversation to have. Let's bring in the chairman of the Kenya Association of Private Hospitals, Dr. Abdul Mohammed. Good morning, Dr. Ari.
Good morning, Eric.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for speaking to us. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you for having me.
And as you've heard from Dr. Masi's introduction, we basically want to find out the situation of healthcare in the country. Beyond COVID-19, all these other cases that we had before, from casual observation, anecdotally, Dr. Masi is saying people appear to have reduced their hospital visits. What exactly is happening? Is that the case or is that not?
Yes, that's the case. And there are a number of factors that have led to the reduction. Most hospitals, including public and private hospitals, actually almost all of them, have seen a reduction in patient number, both outpatient and inpatient numbers. So there was the initial request from the Ministry of Health to slow down on elective cases and to slow down on other clinics, so that in case of a surge in number of patients, we have enough bed capacity to handle COVID patients.
Right.
That was the first initial challenge. Then, to add to it, there was also the curfew that happened at night, which means that people can't go to hospital at night. And unfortunately, there isn't enough ambulance coverage, or not everyone has access to an ambulance, or even knows how to access an ambulance.
Yeah.
So that also happened, and not everyone can drive or own a car.
Yeah.
So that's also another challenge. The third challenge maybe that has happened is patients who might be having common acute illnesses that usually come with fever, like diarrhea, other pneumonias, malaria. Now, a little bit hesitant to go to hospital as well, because they think every time you present with fever, the rapid response team will be called to test you for COVID.
Yeah.
So that fear is also there from work. Now, all of a sudden, maybe their insurance had expired. There's no cash. So why or how do you go to a hospital? You prioritize other things. Food becomes a necessity first.
So with all these things that are happening,
there's a number of things.
The end result is that we are seeing reduced footfall in hospitals.
Yes.
Basically,
yes,
people are not going to hospital. Now,
Yes.
what is
In
happening
fact,
to people
and
who previously needed to go to hospital? What are they doing? If they are treating themselves at home, are they getting worse or are they managing? Because are we also seeing an increase in the number of deaths?
That I wouldn't know, because that will be more of the Bureau of Statistics, the one that handles death permits and such are the ones who will tell us whether there is high number of deaths. But what will happen is some of these diseases, they just complicate more. So that's the biggest challenge, that you will have complications, or it will build up slowly in such a way that in maybe 2 months or a month or 3 months from now, all of a sudden you have the consequences. Suppose if you missed your family planning and you didn't pick it, in 9 months you will
There'll
see
be
the
consequences.
There'll be dire consequences. Added population.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Some of the consequences will come later. Some will be, like, for example, if you have been on anti-TB and or you have been on ARV, what happens is you will develop resistance. You will start getting opportunistic infections. So the same drugs that you're using now will not work after 3, 4, 5 months, because now they are useless. You need to be advanced to a higher drugs.
Yeah.
Which are more costly at the end of the day. And
exactly.
What's the danger of, because what we're seeing is that people are at home sitting with these would-be diseases or these needs for surgery, for example, even if it is elective, or even if they have need for a surgery that maybe they can wait a couple of months. So if there is a problem, isn't this a danger that we see where people are sitting in their homes with these?
Yes, it's a ticking time bomb, and the results will be, there will be a high burden of diseases post-COVID, or even in the last 2-3 months of the year, when maybe things calm down. That's where now, or maybe when some of the complications will come out, and there will be a higher burden. Whatever that could have been sorted out now might progress, and unfortunately, we don't have a system, a community healthcare worker system that can be following up these patients that have been in existence, because at this time, those are the kind of people maybe who you would want to be going to communities, sensitizing on the importance of continuing with care, whether it's at home or even whether it is going to facilities once every 2 months or 3 months, just to make sure that they are up to date with their medication. Yes.
Doc, when you look at where we are now, when you look back, was it a good idea then to ask hospitals to, postpone elective cases, postpone clinics? Because you're seeing some of your hospitals, the private hospitals, especially in the city, are slowly telling people, we are back in business, our clinics are fully open and whatnot.
Yeah.
Was it a bad idea from the word go to tone down on this, because then people got the impression that, hospitals are only now open for COVID?
I wouldn't say it was a bad idea. Sometimes it's good to err on caution than have problems. But what the challenge with pandemics or any other emergency situation is, the situation is always fluid. Every day you face new challenges, but you can't solve them with the same solution that you had yesterday. So you need to continuously monitor and continuously change your strategies based on the situation on the ground, what you are seeing. And the truth of the matter is, COVID is here with us until we get a vaccine. So we need to learn to live with it and find a solution, which is to prioritize testing, quarantine, isolation, and contact tracing. That's where we should put in all our money, so that you have minimal treatment centers, rather than by testing as many people as possible to understand how the situation is. So I wouldn't say it was a bad idea. I would just say that was the right idea at that time. But as time progresses, you need to relook at it and say, what can we do? And how do we communicate to the public and tell them, please continue with your antihypertensives, please continue with your medication, please don't be scared of going to a hospital. But more importantly, I would say, now we need to maybe identify and say these are COVID facilities specifically. Then the rest of the public now can seek care in those other facilities that are so-called non-COVID facilities. Maybe that might be the new strategy that will help us.
Doctor, if you designate certain centers as COVID centers, if I have a mild cough and I'm diabetic and my sugar is high, I'll probably just go into any facility because I think my sugar is high, it needs to be addressed. Yet, I could be having COVID. Shouldn't the plan or the strategy be that all healthcare facilities are on high alert to pick out, test anyone who would have COVID, and then after that, then maybe you can say you can isolate in COVID facilities? Because what we are seeing now with the kind of treatment we've had on isolation centers, quarantine facilities, we have sort of made them, we have stigmatized them, for lack of a better description. So I am unlikely to walk into a COVID designated facility because I think I want to be checked. I would go to any other facility and complain of everything else except something that would point to COVID. Shouldn't then the plan be have everyone be on high alert?
Definitely, all healthcare workers must be on high alert. Definitely, all wherever they are, and even expand the case definition. You know, at the beginning it was you have traveled. So you see now traveling doesn't matter anymore. You have to redefine your case definition. So that case definition is what needs to go to health facilities, that this is what you look out for. Anyone who has all these kind of symptoms or signs, or even maybe now you can add comes from a certain geographical area, you must be suspicious. Yes. But you see, what that will do, the reason why I was saying designating is, now you will find even people with other things coming to those non-COVID facilities. You can actually start picking. That's where your surveillance will start picking. Is there even other people who are just hiding at home, who had fevers and such, but were never coming to facilities, but now can randomly be tested? So that becomes your sort of targeted testing that you want, because you can't do mass testing. Actually, it's from the hospitals that will start picking people and say, okay, you have come. This is any respiratory symptom, any fevers, any such will be tested as an addition to the normal other tests that you would undergo and treatment.
Dr. Mohammed, I want us to take a short break, take a look at weather, and then continue this conversation.
Okay.
So stay on the line. Dr. Abdul Mohammed is the chairman of the Kenya Association of Private Hospitals. He's also the co-founder and CEO of Ladnan Hospital in Nairobi. So let's continue this conversation and hear what's happening to other ailments, other people who are seeking healthcare or health treatment and support in facilities around the country. Good morning, 17 minutes after 8.
see highs of 23 and rain coming in very early today. Highs and lows of 15. In Nyeri at 17 degrees, cloudy conditions. We see the rain also starting soon. Highs of 23 and lows of 16. In Nakuru at 17 degrees, it's mostly cloudy. Highs of 24 and lows of 14. Again, the rain will make an entrance very early today. It's mostly cloudy in Eldoret. Thunderstorms have been forecasted for the afternoon with highs of 22 and lows of 12. 22 degrees in Kisumu and mostly cloudy. The rain will come back in that part of the country with highs of 27 and lows of 19. Rain showers already coming down in Mombasa at 26 degrees, highs of 27 with thunderstorms following in the afternoon. It continues to downpour in Malindi as well, and that will continue through early parts of the evening, then realizing highs of 27. Dar es Salaam is mostly cloudy at 25 degrees. We'll see thunderstorms there later with highs of 28. Johannesburg at 7 degrees is mostly sunny. We'll see those sunny conditions throughout the day with highs of 21 and lows of 6. Lagos weather is clear today at 27 degrees, highs of 33 and lows of 26.
19 minutes after 8, we are having a conversation with Dr. Abdul Mohammed, who is the chairman of the Kenya Association
Spice
of
up
Private
your life.
Hospitals. Just picking up from where
Mature, intelligent talk
Dr. Marcy
every morning.
raising the issue,
Spice
would
up
you like
yourself.
to maybe ask hospitals and clinics to give more priority to the issue of COVID-19, maybe even just say elective cases, take a pause on them. And Dr. We are saying, well, looking back, it's always best to on the side of caution and then watch as the fluid situation develops and adjust. Doc, you sit in as a chairman of the Kenya Association of Private Hospitals. You're at a position of acquiring serious information or top information even from the government. Do you know whether the government has been, or even private hospitals had come up with a monitoring system to see, so this is what we are coming up with now, and we'd like to monitor and see the numbers and also see the cases and adjust accordingly? Do you know whether there's any plan like that or any information that's been gathered?
Yes, there have been a lot of consultation back and forth. So, as you know, decisions take some time to be made based on information available. But there is a lot of discussion back and forth. And as I have told you, when the immediate complications arise, patients are coming to hospitals. It's not that hospitals are empty completely. The ones who have issues, as always, cannot stay at home. They will somehow find their way to the hospital.
Dr. We have cases, I mean, right now, some cases, I mean, we heard of one the other day when, a hospital may have turned a patient back, citing COVID as the reason why they were not taking any. Is this the stance to take now, or how are patients aware of where they can or cannot go in a situation of emergency? What should be done? What should be the message out there right now?
Actually, every hospital must be able to have a way of isolating patients. So not every hospital is able to treat, but what you need to do is, if you suspect, you must have a certain small area within your facility where you can keep the patient temporarily, and anyone who is going to see will have the PPEs. Then call the rapid response team to come and do the testing and transfer the patient if the patient is either positive or if the patient is highly suspicious, high index of suspicion. So that is what's supposed to happen. So you receive every patient that comes to you. You treat the ones that have other normal conditions. The one you suspect is the one now you are supposed to put aside. You are not supposed to take them back to the community. That will be irresponsible, in my opinion. Yes.
Doctor, I had a conversation with another doctor yesterday, and you've mentioned PPEs. And in their opinion, they think that the full suit, space suit, quote unquote, that people are having for COVID suspected cases is unnecessary. One, because they are costly. Two, the disposable ones means once you're done, you've thrown it away. So it means it's high cost for, private hospitals, especially the ones you represent, and like government, where, government has muscle, it has more people, it can negotiate on economies of scale. So their opinion was that probably we need to tone down to maybe a gown, just good gloves and an N95 mask without the whole, hula baloo.
Entire kit.
Top
to bottom, plus gumboots.
Exactly. As long as you've covered the high-risk areas, your eyes, your nose and mouth, and your hands. Do you think this is... Sorry. Do you think this is something we should consider, considering we're in a resource-limited society?
Actually, it's not that we are in a resource-limited society. It's that is the correct position, even in terms of guidelines. That you don't need for any suspected case to don the whole. So there are two challenges which I know is leading to this issue. Number one is lack of knowledge, disseminated knowledge to the healthcare workers, and the fear of contracting the disease that healthcare workers have because of hearing things from other countries that had high numbers of patients. Then there is the unavailability as well of these things, which is costly. So in my opinion, and the way we have done in our facility is we do the basics, as you have mentioned, N95, if you suspect that is. But generally, a mask all over everyone, including even the watchman at the gate.
Yeah.
But now, subsequently, people who are handling patients have certain other precautions that they need, basics. Then you just isolate any patient that you have, that you suspect, and then you proceed with the others as usual. So, yes, there is lack of knowledge and there is fear that need to be, and training that need to happen continuously to the healthcare workers as well. In this time, actually, while the numbers are still low, so that they know what needs or what precautions to take.
And when you have somebody brings themselves to a hospital and they cough, and therefore you start suspecting that maybe they could be positive for COVID-19, as you put them in a quarantine in a facility like one of the private hospitals, should everybody who's dealing with this person, we still don't know whether they're COVID-19 or not, should they be wearing all these full suits?
No, there is no need. As Dr. Mercy has said, basic, simple, and you still keep your distance. It's not like you need to do full, because this is not in ICU position where you need to intubate or there's procedures that you are doing. You just, as usual, maintain the distance, have your N95 mask, put on gloves, do the basic infection prevention that is acceptable worldwide.
So as we talk about healthcare workers and how they're handling this, there was a concern raised by some that, healthcare workers, like everyone else, yourself included, is afraid of contracting the virus. Everyone, when you hear somebody in a facility has come, is suspected of COVID, everyone is taking off. And so what this means, or the consequence of this, is that patients will not get adequate healthcare services. If you're thinking of somebody comes and they need resuscitation, they may not be in a position, because of the fear, to actually do resuscitation as is required, because now that is a procedure that may, cause aerosolization, or if they had the virus, for example, it puts them at high risk if they do full, resuscitation, and if they put in full. Are you seeing this also in the private facilities, and what are you doing? Because it's unfair to the patient who comes in who needs health services, and the people who are supposed to provide it are terribly scared.
True. But you see, the only way to overcome that scare is hospitals having some basic PPE within their facility at the minimum, and also at the same time continuous training and learning that you need to. You see, they need also to be reassured, like any other person.
Yep.
Healthcare workers, as much as they are trained, but they are human beings with families, with fear. So that has to not to be continuous training, educating, teaching them that this is what happens, this is what you need to take care, this is what you should do, this is how you should handle, so that they also understand that not every patient who walks in coughing is a COVID patient. The reality is all other diseases are not on holiday. They are still
here with us.
They are still here with us. They might get some improvement and reduction if we are practicing the hand hygiene that we talk about. Maybe diarrheal diseases will go down. Hopefully, or if we are practicing cough hygiene, maybe even the other pneumonia and other cough will also go down. That is if we are practicing things correctly. We are not putting on masks just for show off or for purposes of being scared, being fined. So that the public also understand that these things have other effects that will help them in terms of maintaining their health in this time.
Is this training ongoing? Because 4 months since the world identified COVID, 2 months and counting since in Kenya is still ongoing, because we're still getting some of these concerns. You'd expect that, by now you have actually sensitized, even if it's 75-80% of the healthcare workforce.
I don't know whether you have been, the joke going around is webinosis. This is webinar.
Everything is a webinar.
Every webinar, this webinar, that.
Because everything is this disease in the era of COVID. This disease in the era of COVID. A few months ago, it was this disease in the era of UHT. But what I'm trying to say is, yes, of course, there's also the other aspect of where there are some people who just generally don't want to work. There are some people who are just looking for excuses. There will be the usual suspects who will try and do things not the right, especially, I'm sorry to say, guys who are in public sector. But yes, the fear is still there. And if a facility does not have maybe gloves, maybe N95 or certain masks, then also that also creates also another challenge as well. So it's a true fear that you would expect. But yes, training, fortunately there are many recordings that has happened, that has been done, that you don't even need to call people into a conference room and train them. They can easily watch from their mobile phone or from their laptop or from somewhere, pre-recorded and continuous recordings that are happening daily.
Dr. Ari, let's take another short break, take a look at traffic, and then continue this conversation. On the line with us is Dr. Abdul Mohammed, chairman of the Kenya Association of Private Hospitals. He's also a co-founder and CEO of Ladnam Hospital in Nairobi. We are talking about, in this era of COVID-19, other diseases in this era of COVID-19. 28 minutes to 9. Good morning.
Traffic in the era of COVID-19 is quite interesting as we see it as well. Not so much is that it has dissipated now. Mombasa Road is looking much better, and you can get into the CBD with not much of a headache, and out of the CBD, interestingly enough, as well. On Jogo Road, we saw a little bit of an issue, and that seems to have been cleared up, though there's still some riots still going on here and there. But the road is open, it can be used, but we're asking you to be extremely careful. Apart from that, it looks good, guys. And remember, you're going to see pools of water, especially outside of the county of Nairobi. If we're going to look specifically in Nakuru, we're going to look in Kisumu, Bungoma, Kakamega, Busia. Approaching pools of water, you want to be very careful whether you're driving or walking. Do not, if you don't know the depth, and in most cases you're not able to. So if you can go around, go around. It'll take a little longer, but you'll get there safe, right? Spice of MKE, that's how you can reach us.
We'll open up the phone lines for you to
Spice
call
up
in
your
and
life.
join this conversation.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Their chairman, Dr. Abdul Mohammed, is on air with us this morning. Terry, in the previous hour, we were looking at the chain of transmissions in the country, and we ventured into the discussion of housing healthcare workers, just to reduce their risk of transmission into the community now that they are highly at risk of coming into contact with the virus. What is it that the private hospitals are doing about this?
Private hospitals that have or are actively managing patients who have admitted and decided to isolate and treat usually house their staff. I know of Avenue. That's what they have done. All their healthcare workers who have been handling one patient, 18 of them have been kept in a hotel. So they haven't been going back home.
Okay.
So that's why it's very expensive for a private hospital to take care of any COVID patient. The only places, and unless the numbers now become so much that you will need now to find ways of doing cheaply, because putting that cost to the patient will be too expensive. The hotel costs plus the normal treatment, it will be impossible.
So what should you do? What should the private hospitals be doing? Because you, like we are saying, now anybody can walk into a hospital, anybody could be positive, but they don't know. And then they are coming into contact with a healthcare worker. And for some reason, one reason or the other, the healthcare worker is also at risk of contracting COVID-19, and they go back home at the end of the day. You also don't want to have all your staff going into isolation or even in quarantine for 14 days during this time.
True. So what you need to do as a facility is make sure you have PPEs if you are taking care of patients, the right PPEs. The people who are handling know how to use the PPEs. Because also you could be having the PPEs, but they don't know how to put on and off. So they keep on infecting themselves. So that's also another challenge that you need to address. And even have a place where they can be accommodated post shifts when they see patients.
Okay.
Yes. Otherwise, you cannot handle COVID patients appropriately, in my opinion.
Doc, if you look at a bit of a dicey issue, and that's the issue of cost, especially that is preferred by the private hospitals in this country, that's significantly more, obviously, than what you would get at public hospitals. However, in many cases, not justified. Treatment, whether we're looking at COVID or anything else for that matter. And then, if we look at COVID testing as well, significantly higher in these private facilities. Why the huge disparity?
One uses taxpayers' money, and another one is private.
Another one takes the rest the taxpayers have.
Another one is,
After paying.
taking taxpayers' money.
So someone in the public sector is paid by taxpayer. Their salary is catered for. They are not looking for markups, or they are not looking for, or they don't have a big cost to run.
Yeah.
So they are not thinking about the salary of the person who is doing, they are not thinking about the electricity. All those things are catered for in a budget. So all they need is just to do what they need to do. So it will be, of course, definitely cheaper. But in terms of if you do costing, now you know there is a difference between pricing and costing. So if you do the actual costing, you will find they are the same. It's only that one is subsidized by taxpayer, and another one you are bearing everything on your own as an individual. That's the difference.
I think the argument comes out that it could be debatable as well, because as a private facility,
for example, if you have heard of one of the machines for Roche, cost to do PCR costs 350 million shillings. That is the one which is the lowest. The higher one, which can do many tests, costs 660 million Kenya shillings.
Yeah. So it's going to be more. It's going to be more expensive.
Of course, that's why you will find there are only maybe 2 facilities that are able to do those tests because they had those machines. The rest of the private couldn't, but there were many other public center. Kemri had the National Lab, KNH.
So let's look at the cost of quarantine and treatment while in isolation for patients. We have seen complaints emerging from these private hospitals that somebody has gone into a hospital, they spent maybe 2 nights, and their bill comes to over 300,000 shillings. Breakdown shows all these consumables. So there was a glove that was worn by somebody who came to clean, and
the PPEs.
the PPEs.
There were goggles that cost 1,928 shillings. I'm just going to give you because these numbers don't leave. They're like
stuck in your
indelible marks in my brain. 1,928 shillings for a pair of goggles, which are then trashed after that. Meanwhile, we see that we know for a fact that our private hospitals don't buy these things piecemeal. They buy them in bulk. So it's not possible that you would get, a retail price where you get a wholesale price. And then we do a little bit of research and we find that the most expensive goggles in that cadre, for example, are 550 shillings. So we're unable to reconcile between the difference of what is down
That
priced.
markup is huge.
It's huge.
It's sinful.
Okay. Now let's talk about 2 things. The first issue that we need to understand is when COVID started, or the first case that was announced in the country, there was a generally global shortage in terms of PPEs and everything in this country.
Yeah.
Even masks was an issue getting. One box was costing for surgical masks was 5,000 shillings. Something that we used to buy at 250 shillings prior to COVID. So the price shot up from 250 shillings to 5,000 shillings.
Yeah.
That's number one. Number two, the suits that you're talking about that's being disposed of in some places, number one, they were not available. The few that were available was costing 20,000 shillings. That's why majority of the hospitals, private hospitals, and this is one thing that we need as a public to understand, that there are almost 6,000 private hospitals. But every time we compare or we talk about high cost in the private sector, basically we are referring to 3 or 4 hospitals in Nairobi.
Yep.
So we make a sweeping assumption of 3 or 4 hospitals, generalizing. 3 or 4 hospitals represent 5,000, 6,000 other private hospitals. For example, there are many private hospitals within Kibera. I want to ask, do you tell me they are able to charge the kind of amounts that we are discussing? No. There are many other private facilities in rural areas. Will those people in the rural areas, are they able to handle such costs? No. So what we have is maybe few big hospitals that are able to charge, and it's based on their clients, based on what they put in terms of the cost of doing business, the people they employ, the things that they have invested in, the systems that they have put in place. And you will find those goggles now or those gloves now are cheaper, but at that time they got them at a very high price. So I wouldn't be so dismissive in terms of what they have charged in those itemized billing. I would be more interested in what was the cost and how are they putting up their markup, or what's their markup?
Yeah.
Is it 10%, 30%, 50%, 100%? I don't know.
Is there best practice on what percentage of markup you should put on every item?
Not really. It's individualized. Each facility has its own way of putting a markup. That's why even within the private sector, you will have a range of prices. You will find the Rolls-Royce prices, and if you go lower, you will find the Beach price if you want. And sometimes you get the same thing, only that the location, the room,
the brand name,
the brand name,
the brand name. The same way you have an iPhone and you have Infinix, they will not cost the same. One will sell to you at a higher because they feel they have extra features that you might not need or you need. Then the Infinix will tell you, for me, I will give you for this price this amount.
Yeah.
So basically, that's the challenge.
Are you saying this is a willing buyer,
It's
willing seller
market-driven.
market?
Definitely 100%. And the people who go to those two, three, four facilities...
Should there be no ethics here? We are talking about now the COVID emergency in particular.
but
Number one, insurance is not covering this.
Yes,
You're responding to an emergency.
yes.
You are looking at the cost of your running your business, but you need to also look at it from the point of this is an emergency and this is the situation for my regular clientele. Shouldn't there be that kind of consideration?
Definitely there is, and I'm sure they have considered. That's why I have told you, not every private hospital has the capacity to do because of the cost of input.
Okay.
You can imagine buying those suits at 20,000 shilling or even 15,000 per set, and they are being disposed, and each patient is being seen by 4, 5, 6, or 10 people twice a day. So if you just do the calculation for that one patient, they are seen by 5 people. Each has won a suit of even maybe 10,000 shillings, for example. That's 50
That's
at
50.
a go. And they will dispose it off. They go a second round to see the patient.
Another 50.
That's another 50,000 gone. 100,000.
Yeah.
So now the question is, who will bear that cost? And that's why if it's a pandemic...
Or
in
the
my
other
opinion,
question is, must they be seen by 5 people at a go when you basically know that you are not treating them and they are not in critical condition?
Now that's where the issue arises. If they are not being seen, if they are not in critical condition, then they don't need to be seen by 5 people.
They don't need to be in the hospital even in the first place. They shouldn't be admitted.
I would say so, but you see, the Ministry of Health has its own guidelines.
Yeah,
It says
isolation.
anyone who is positive must be in isolation. And isolation, they have given the option of public or private. You opt for where to go. So, yes, if the numbers increase, for sure, those who are symptomatic will be forced. You know, sometimes, as I've told you, this thing is fluid. Now we are able to house everyone because we have spaces available. But the moment the numbers swell, we will be pushing and telling people, if you have no symptom, please stay at home, don't even come near the hospital.
So from where you are sitting and what you see, we've not reached that point yet whereby we're saying don't come to hospital. So you're saying that now if people present with symptoms, they can come to hospital, we'll have a look at them, but we'll get to the point whereby we'll be asking people to stay at home?
Yes, that's what has happened in the rest of the world.
No, but now in Kenya, from all indications, we
in
get to the
Kenya,
point whereby...
We hope we don't reach. That means our hospitals have been overwhelmed. That means we are seeing thousands of patients So we pray not to reach that level. Never ever. We contain as much as possible because we will not have the capacity in terms of PPEs, in terms of masks, in terms of having the right personnel who understand the disease and how to handle. So our best measure is to contain. That's our best strategy. And that's the only way we will be able to get out of this safe. Not to treat, because for sure, we wouldn't want to reach there.
Dr. Looking at what you're explaining, the high cost of doing business, because private hospitals is a business, actually, quite literally. There's a high cost now of doing the business, and then the numbers that are coming to hospital has reduced. Is COVID likely to affect private hospital businesses negatively, such that some may not survive these, especially the smaller private hospitals? And two, are we likely to also see, ironically, layoffs, salary cuts, and such like in the healthcare sector, the private healthcare sector, because of the nature of business as is currently?
Definitely. And the reason why I say is simple. You see, if it's a business and you have employed the people and there is nothing coming in, you will most likely start reducing, cutting off, reducing salaries, or even saying leave without pay. All these things. I'm sure no one basically is safe other than people who are in the public sector, because their salaries are sure.
Even those they're not
get
safe.
It from.
If some of us are to have our way, they're not safe.
No, but in real, they are the only ones who are assured of salary continuously.
True.
They might miss on their other extra allowances, so that might be happening. But yes, there will be challenges. Ironically, health facilities might start reducing, even laying off certain staff. So
has it started in some places?
In a few places, definitely they have started. But you see, the beauty or the thing is, most facilities have a certain relationship with their staff, so they might be staying around, maybe without getting the full salary or without getting salary, but knowing that subsequently, when things improve, they will get their salary.
Dr. Mohammed, let's talk about insurance.
Yes.
We know that the force majeure clause kicked in immediately. The word pandemic kicked in. And now those who had taken out insurance, those whose employers had taken out insurance for them, many people who have insurance basically are sitting there with, like what we knew about title deeds, worthless piece of paper.
Yes.
Has the Private Sector Association had tried to have a conversation with insurers to see how insurance companies could work to help in this what are you calling it? In this COVID what?
COVID era.
In this COVID era. In this era of COVID. Insurance in the era of COVID.
I wouldn't call it a waste, in my opinion, because not everyone will get infected with COVID, but chances of you getting an accident or any other disease are higher than getting COVID. So it will be still useful for your other diseases. And now, when maybe you have a cover that's running up to next year, but you have been laid off, at least you are assured of the health parts of your family is catered for, even if it's not for COVID-related diseases. But for other diseases, you have something to cater for your family. Yes, the reason is very simple why insurances will be scared. You see, what will happen is, as I've told you, now everyone who has an insurance will say, I can't go to a public facility, I will only go to a private facility because I have an insurance.
Yeah.
So that means even some of the people, their benefits are 500,000 at most. or $1 million for inpatient, and they have already used maybe 200, 100, 300. So they will also, it's not enough as well. Then if we look at it again, it's only 3% of the population who have medical insurance. So we are talking about a very small minority.
Yeah.
97% don't have private insurances. Maybe add another 10-20% will have maybe NHIS.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, that's very little. Individually, you can take care as much as possible. Don't depend on... the other challenge or the thing that people need to realize is COVID has no treatment that's known. All the treatment that's happening is experimental and symptomatic treatment. So don't hope or wish to get it or think that because you have a cover, now you become reckless and expose yourself. So your best measure is to be cautious as much as possible. And if you have been laid off, at the minimum, please update your NHIS because it will be very useful. It's 500 shilling a month. Just update your NHIS cover so that you at least continue having your medical sorted in one way or another. I know it will look, it's too much for someone who has been laid off, but I would say sometimes you invest in the unknown because you don't know what's going to happen.
Okay.
Yes.
Dr. Abdul Mohammed, we want to thank you very much for speaking to us this morning.
Thank you.
And we would
Thank
like
you.
you to pass on the message to the private hospitals as well and all the healthcare workers in your facilities. When we are clapping for all of them. Those in
Not,
public,
the public
those in
sector.
public, those in private. As long as someone is a healthcare worker, we clap for them. So in fact, here, this one is for you, Dr. Abdul Mohammed.
Thank you. One thing that I listened to in the morning, you're talking about the issue of someone being in a certain part of the country and then they get an accident.
Yes.
I had this same discussion in the studio at KTN with the Morning Express, and I gave a very simple example, which was you are in Watamu, you want to swim, you fall down in the swimming pool, you get a head injury. You might be having a gold card, credit card. You might be having an insurance card that is 100 million.
Yep.
All those will be useless. The nearest facility you'll be taken to is a health center in Watamu.
Yep.
Or the Malindi District Hospital. If there are no doctors and there are no nothing, then be assured all those things will be a waste. So when doctors and healthcare workers generally advocate for more doctors to be trained and more facilities to be equipped, it's for all of us. Sometimes we look invincible in our small areas within Nairobi, but we realize that we travel and we go places that will have issues. So we need to advocate, and the private sector is only supplementing what the government is doing.
The government should be
so
doing.
It's not there so much, like in those rural places. There isn't much money that they are making from those health centers or small private hospitals that are in those places. They are there just to supplement because they understand the local facilities don't have the capacity to handle everyone who needs care. Yes.
What is it that the medical professionals can do to push this harder? Because yes, we have this conversation all the time. Strikes happen. That's when the conversation comes up. After the strikes, the conversation dissipates. How can we sustain this conversation until the government grows ears? Because currently it doesn't have any.
There are two ways. Doctors will continue pushing, the ones who are in the public sector and private sector, that more needs to be invested. But more importantly is there must be some sort of insurance for everyone,
Right.
a universal health coverage.
Yeah.
So that, at least at the minimum, will give you access. Whether it's the private who will invest in facilities or the counties will invest, as long as you have a cover, there will be people who are willing to provide services. Paying out of pocket for healthcare is impossible and it's expensive. Even if you are told you are, I don't know who, middle class, if you are told to sustain and pay for dialysis for a month, it will cost you around 100,000 shillings.
It's not
How
possible.
many families will be able
to do
sustain
that?
that kind of treatment for a month, which is lifelong until you get transplant? So what we need is to make sure maybe advance the benefits from NHIF. And when now people come up and say we need to increase a little bit the premium of NHIF so that we can get more benefits for people, then we are all up in arms. You know, the biggest problem...
Dr.
is
Arida,
there's a lot
you've
of
touched a raw
information.
nerve. The issue is not raising the premium, but rather showing what you have done with the little that you had been
Yes.
given first, so that
The-
we are able to be convinced that if we add, there'll
You
be
will
more
do more.
benefit accrued to us. So
Optimize what you have.
yes, that's a very raw nerve.
Actually, I'm ready to now expand more on that program. For example, I will give you a very simple example. I know that's why I'm telling you there's a lot of misinformation. That's the biggest challenge. Dialysis currently. Everyone who's on dialysis in this country, 99.9% is paid for by NHIF.
By NHIF.
Yes.
Yeah.
Prior to it, dialysis was not accessible and available to everyone.
Yep.
People were dying in their homes, people were dying in hospitals because they couldn't afford, and the public facilities did not have the capacity to handle. But because NHIF took it up, they were able to now, people don't need to hire a house in Kibra so that they can access dialysis in
At
Kenyatta.
KNH. Yeah.
They can get dialysis in their county, in their facility.
Yeah.
That's number one. Number two, prior to NHIF expanding its surgical package, patients who had procedures that needed to be operated on were unable to access surgery. Why? Because they will go to a public facility, they will be told the booking is next year, December 2021, and you have now a disease that needs to be operated on.
Yeah.
You, a young man, you're on a motorcycle, you fall off, you get fractured, you are taken to KNH, you are put on traction. I think Dr. Marcy understands. They tie your leg.
You
or they-
literally hang.
a hand
They'll
for 12
hang
weeks.
your leg, your hand, whatever it is, for 6
For
months or
12
so.
weeks. For 12 weeks.
Yeah.
And chances of having it not healing are very high. So another 12 weeks will be added. So you have a young man who was earning a livelihood for his family now on being hung somewhere
For 24
who
weeks.
can't access treatment because the bookings and the facilities and the instruments are not available.
Yeah.
But now if you have NHIF and you walk to any facility that accepts NHIF card, you will get your fracture fixed. After 4 days discharged, you go home. A week or 2 weeks later, you are back working.
That is all in agreement. Now, relate
So
juxtapose
let's
that
not
with
say
cost.
NHIF doing zero work. So let's quantify and accept and say maybe there is some more improvement that needs to happen.
Okay.
So let that improvement
Don't throw
happen
everything.
first with the billions that are already there. Then we can start a conversation on let's increase
So
the
all-
premium. Because
so all
500
those
is still
things are
punitive
not
for a majority of Kenyans. Okay, not really punitive, but it's difficult to come by for a majority of Kenyans. So if you now say you want to do 1,000, for example, there are families that will have to choose between paying that premium for a disease or for something they cannot foresee and paying for food, something they are hungry for now.
So let me now where I was coming was, I was saying when the premium, I didn't mean you pay out of your pocket. The premium can be increased by even supplementary funding from
the
Treasury.
government.
Okay, now you're talking.
Of course.
Now we are talking. It's,
Dr. Mohammed, I think we'll invite you to the studio so that we can come and talk about the cost of healthcare and the
right.
best way to approach the issue of universal health coverage.
Thank you.
For all of us.
I will be more than willing to come.
Asante sana. We wish you a good day.
Thank you.
It's shortly after 9 o'clock. We've been talking to Dr. Abdul Mohammed. He's the chairman of the Kenya Association of Private Hospitals. We ended up on that point where we shall pick it up sometime later in coming days. Cost of healthcare in the country. Good morning. Let's take a look at traffic.
Right. Heavy traffic on Mombasa Road outbound this morning. Nobody is staying at home, unfortunately. And it's about an hour in, and it looks like it's not giving up anytime soon. All the way from the Cabanas and then down towards Bellevue. This is what we see this morning. Thika Road also. A little bit getting into the city center, unfortunately. It's not working this morning. The traffic on Jogo Road, it seems like Nairobi is back to normal. Unfortunately, getting into the CBD is going to take you a pretty minute before you're there. All right, that's what it looks like around about 9 o'clock. We'll see what it looks like in a short while, but for now, this is what we see.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth,
4 minutes
Kenyan
after 9.
by choice, communications expert.
Mombasa Mwambaje. Now we are talking about Mombasa, okay, for the next 54 minutes and counting. So, Governor Ali Hassan Joho, from the very beginning, he was like, you know what, this COVID-19 thing, let's not joke with it. It's going to be a serious issue. In fact, I'm advocating for a proper lockdown of the country. That did not happen. Anyway, the governor instituted his own measures, the measures that they came up with at the county coordinating committee. They have done a lot. Now he's been calling for more mass testing. They have identified Old Town as a hotspot. He has noticed that Old Town people are not adhering to what the government has said. He went to Old Town earlier and he told them, look, guys, come on. Cases are emanating from Old Town. We'd like to come and do mass testing, targeted mass testing here. But at the same time, we'd like you people to obey, to follow what the government is asking you to do, to observe social distancing, to wash your hands, to wear a mask whenever you're out. In fact, mosques were closed just for the same reason. It's not because we hate religion. It's just to ensure that we are reducing congregation of many people. What have we seen coming out of Old Town? Mwambie Joho. Mwambie Joho.
This is Ndu's.
It
was Ndu's first headline. Chaos after youths eject medics from Mombasa Old Town.
Eject medics.
There's a disconnect, a big
Thoroughly.
one, a thorough disconnect there.
Eject medics. Basically, the youth have said, Nini, mwakuja kupima nani hapa? Tokeni. So leave. This is, does Joho think he can come and command us? Does Joho think he can come and tell us what to do? Go tell him. He has no power. He has no authority. And we have seen these people also being supported by a legislator. Jichopevu, who's the MP for Nyeri, even went on social media and recorded a video and said, you know what, shehe, tunakujua uko na nguvu, lakini you have no powers at all to come and threaten us with lockdowns. You stop threatening us. Hautujui sisi. is this the right approach? Where is the breakdown here? What's wrong?
It's a broken telephone kind of thing, where and I saw there was an experiment that was done, an anecdotal experiment anyway, that was done, I think it's somewhere in East Asia, where they had a long line of people. I think there were like 100. So from the beginning, somebody was given a message, probably like say, tell so and so to clap their hands. By the time it got to the very end,
It was slap.
it was something totally different. So you see, and we've been saying it here in the Situation Room all the time, that your communication needs to be clear. You shouldn't have any gaps. You shouldn't have any room for improvement. It should be very clear from the word go. What you're communicating and what you're doing should be at par. Take, for example, the day the curfew started. And the first place that really horrified all of us, including journalists, was Likoni, the Likoni ferry.
Yep.
People are being clobbered at 2 hours before curfew lockdown. You have women of all ages, pregnant or not, old men, everyone being clobbered. They're being made to lie down, some in pools of water. You have journalists being beaten up. And here you're trying to make people understand what you're trying to achieve. So from what you're saying and how you're acting, really, there's a disconnect. So you come here now, Old Town is a problem. It's Ramadan. People are trying to do something. They are going to be on a different path from where you are.
Why are they on a different path?
I think on the face of it, you would definitely there is a clash between what is tradition and culture, and then what is being asked in this stage right now, where people are saying, for what you are used to, don't engage in it anymore for now, temporarily. And there are people for which culture and tradition is so deeply entrenched. I mean, there are people for which it's so entrenched that asking them to do something out of that is unbelievable. So they cannot reconcile or resonate with you asking them not to heed Ramadan or not to
congregate.
to congregate, because that is the very essence of this this celebration. That's the very essence of this period that which they're celebrating.
But this
at this
conversation
time.
started a long time. Weeks before Ramadan, the county government had already started saying, this is what we are preparing for Ramadan. We know that mosques have been closed. We know we have come up with measures on observing social distancing, on avoiding crowds. This is what we'd like you to do. So when it comes to iftar, just make sure that you avoid going into... You can do iftar within your house, but you don't have to go and do it the way we've been doing it. And it is just for this year. I mean, what further communication is there that is it that you're saying that was needed? Okay, yes, it's a tradition, it's something that I'm used to, but it doesn't mean that what the person has told you is they have not insulted you by telling you this. They've basically just said, this is what's happening and Ramadan is going to come and we know what we normally do during iftar. This is what we do. We gather, we come together during iftar. Now this time, let's avoid doing that during iftar because of this reason and the other. And we are already seeing there are cases of COVID-19 in Mombasa. It's a hotspot.
It is a hotspot.
We are already seeing children are getting infected. We are seeing the elderly are getting infected. In fact, Joho keeps saying, you don't love yourself, fine. There are people who love you. At least think about them. Or even love somebody else. Think about them. He has used all manner of cajoling. By the time I saw him standing in Old Town and saying, you know what, you guys, mtapimwa, don't, please.
Don't push me.
Don't push me. You can't me. And now the people are saying, you can't us.
You can't us. Because you let me read his quote here. That he was saying, I've seen a video of some youths blocking the ambulance. Don't joke with us. Someone tell them to start vacating. We will hunt them wherever they are. So if you tell youth something like that, what do you expect?
For them to start vacating?
Of course not. They will prepare. The same way you've said, the county said you can't ask, is the same way they'll say you also can't ask. Come, bring whatever you have. We'll also bring what we have.
You've seen the videos going around.
There's a way here, unfortunately, you have to work with people. You cannot avoid working with people. You cannot avoid bringing them to your side for the greater good. So if you're going to issue threats, the human response is to
Push back.
issue threat. Also on the other side. So because here it's now survival for the fittest, trying to see who's stronger than who. So at the end of the day, what will happen is Old Town will continue recording cases. Mombasa will continue being a hotspot, not because people do. I do not think people don't understand what they are supposed to do. People know. But here it's just that you need to come down to people's levels.
By and large, I think there's a majority that understands and a majority that is already heeding these measures. There's a majority that's obeying. There's a minority that is not, and the minority is loud. Now, you want us to call a seminar, a webinar for this minority? At this time.
This webinar that.
Yeah, webinar this, webinar that. Oh, let's tuende kwenye Facebook saa moja leo jioni tuzungumze. Come on.
I think if that is what it will take for that loud minority to be a silent minority and follow suit, why not? Why not? What will it cost?
Time. It's costing time. It's costing.
But
Every
this
minute that passes, that this person is not just disobeying, but is disobeying so blatantly by going out to say, I am coming into contact, I am paralyzing operations. Yesterday we saw a clip of someone saying, we've blocked the road. We are blocking this road. Somebody is going to pray on the street.
Yeah.
but
Joho,
this,
wewe ushaisimamishiwa gari, wewe Joho. I mean, this is just, it's trying to show.
it's just defiance.
Yeah.
It's clearly defiance, but I'm saying
Waswahili
there has to
wasema
be
mwenye
another
nguvu
way.
mpishe, huyu anasema mwenye nguvu simpishi.
But this vuta di kuvute is wasting a lot of time. I'm just thinking, remember during the post-election violence, there was this clip of the police. There was rowdy youth.
Yeah.
Then he came out and, talked to them like,
The GSU officer.
yeah, what are we, what do
are
we
we
want
doing?
for our country? Yeah. So imagine in a situation like that, somebody, be it the governor or anyone else in the county of high rank, comes down and talks to the youth like that. That one officer made a difference in that locality. Here, it may just need the same thing. Because here you want people, not just for the short term, for now, you need people to follow suit probably for the rest of the year. So you need to think long term. You need to look at the long-term goal that you're trying to achieve. And then, if we are going to be living with COVID for the rest of our lives, then it means it's something we need to change how we operate, not just now, but even the Ramadan that will come next year. I remember the other day I was going out for a walk and just within the estate, and I forgot my mask. And I just felt odd. Like I've been one of those people who have not been advocating for masks. But at this point, because now I'm going to the public, it just felt weird not to have a mask. So I had to go and get it. So you have to, keep on drumming this for the long term. Because who knows, we may be wearing masks for the rest of our lives. We need to rethink it.
It's a change that needs to come about. And unfortunately, we are going to get people who are, like I said, entrenched in the belief or in the way of doing things. Unfortunately, because of the society that we live in as well, you have people, unfortunately, who will be used as pawns to send a different message. Now, when you talked about some people being rowdy and stopping operation, them being the minority, in many cases, pawns are taken from the minority to be used to kind of scuttle a process or to bring some kind of irritation when things otherwise should be flowing smoothly. We've not seen the problem before. When Governor Joho started some of the things that he started in Mombasa, we didn't see any kind of resistance.
Yeah.
We didn't see resistance
Why
when
is
he
it
said,
now?
we're going to set up taps for washing hands. We're going to set up sanitization booths. We're asking the people of Mombasa to contribute food. We as the county government have set up go-downs where we're storing food. We didn't hear anything. But when it comes to something whereby now you need to do something definite for this thing to stop, to make sure, basically the last line now, then we see some kind of resistance. And unfortunately, we have to ask ourselves why. And is somebody else coming with this agenda to try and push and scuttle the process? And if so, it's quite unfortunate.
At this time.
It
started off
it's
with
glaring.
clips of somebody saying, Joho, what is this that you're giving us? What kind of relief food is this? How does it, somebody who's during this month of Ramadan, what kind of food is this that you're giving? How surely. 17 minutes after 9. Let's take a look at weather. And then we'll open up the phone lines and speak to everybody around this about what should we see, what should do. Rain situation. Exactly why. This is what we're right now.
It's mostly cloudy conditions in Nairobi at 19 degrees, sun trying to peek out, but we will see rain coming in later with highs of 23 and lows of 15. Nyeri at 19 degrees is mostly cloudy. We'll see highs of 23, and it's going to be a wet afternoon there as well. Nakuru picking up at 17 degrees is mostly cloudy, and it enters into an afternoon of rain. Eldoret at 16 degrees will be mostly cloudy. Thunderstorms will be recorded in the afternoon with highs of 22 and lows of 13. Kisumu weather is mostly cloudy this morning, and we had some rains earlier, but it'll go back to that situation with highs of 27 and lows of 20. Mombasa, the showers are still coming down at 26 degrees. And we'll get into thunderstorms with highs of 27. We'll see the same falling through in Malindi, where it's still mostly cloudy after a morning of rain. We'll see that come back in the afternoon with highs of 27. Dar es Salaam at 25 degrees is going to be mostly cloudy, highs of 28 and lows of 4. Johannesburg weather is mostly sunny today, clear skies all through at 11 degrees. We'll see highs of 21 and lows of 7. In Lagos this morning, wrapping things up at 27 degrees, it's partly cloudy, and that'll be the situation through the day with highs of 33 and lows of 26.
Number of cases, the positive cases, the rise.
Spice up your
These
life.
cases are also
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
has rolled out rapid testing in these areas. Story that started this morning.
Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
We're also seeing videos on social media. Youth basically just pushing back at Joho and telling Joho, we don't care who you are. Not just the youth, actually. The people of all ages. Somebody even sitting down and recording a lengthy video and saying, Joho, who do you think you are? Who do you think you are, really? You can't come and threaten us. Do you think that they're only pushing back because of the words that Joho used on that day when he went there and he said, you know what, guys, we are going to test you. Don't dare me. We are going to test you. And so now they're pushing back just because of that? Or is it because of the...
There could be
action?
other things that are underlying, because having watched Joho and the county government and the Mombasa county government and their response since the very beginning, they have been very proactive. They've been doing things. They've been at the forefront. They've actually been like the poster child for every county government. Like, you look at other county governments and they're like, why are you not doing like Mombasa?
What
They have
Mombasa
been
is
there.
doing, yeah.
So in my own thinking, by the time the governor got to that point where he's saying, we will test you whether you like it or not, there must have been other things that had happened for him to be pushed there, because he'd been the one who was explaining to people, being out there and, rallying people around. So I think there must have been something, or there must have been some frustrations somewhere. But here is now, because we are here and Mombasa cases are rising, 157 as at yesterday, and I think they've increased probably 160 something. They need to rethink the strategy. As Dr. Mohammed said, Abdi Mohammed said, it's a fluid situation. You go and you change as you go along. You re-strategize, reorganize. So I'm thinking for Mombasa, for example, and this has been shown to work well even in other places, other disease pandemics or any other government policy directive that you want people to buy in. Talk to the people with social capital. the people who have a say in some of those societies.
The community
fo-
influencers.
Yeah, the fortunate thing about the African society is that we still listen to our elders. If elders say our people A, B, C, and D, chances are you will listen. If the imams, the sheikhs, if they are to buy in and talk to people, chances are people will listen. So I think for me, it is about time to rethink the strategy in Mombasa. Don't threaten people because you want people to come out. You don't want the situation
Step
like we're
back
seeing in
and
Isli, where people are saying, where the report is people are not cooperative when it comes to contact tracing. You need to reorganize and re-strategize because you're going to test people. It's not Elizabethiana that you are going to test.
They're
it's
human
people.
beings.
They're human beings. So you need them to cooperate because once they have tested positive, you need them to disclose
give you
certain
further
information that will help you contain the situation.
Let's go to the phone line. 0719-012-600. Starting off in Mombasa. Blackwater, good morning.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning,
Good morning.
Blackwater.
I think the doctor kind of texted me what I was going to say. Basically, communication is the key out here. Okay, and that's why you have the MCA. That's why you have the Nyumba Kumi. That's why you have the, as she said, the sheikhs and all. These are the people you should have touched first, so they could talk to the people on the ground, let them know, this is what's going on. Because imagine the situation where you had the old man that passed away, and they took 17 members of his family into quarantine in Portrees. Now you ask yourself this: why didn't you just quarantine the whole family in their house?
Yeah.
Why did you have to take all these people to this one location and later on find out the old man had other underlying sicknesses? They did not have corona. And this is why people are having a problem here, and they sit back here and say, listen, man, this corona is not real. Because if you look at the Likoni side, Likoni has a lot of people that have been dropping, but Likoni is quiet.
Yep.
So chances are we are mostly carriers, and you could understand some of these things happen that in the sense that you find that out here, if you have malaria and you go to the U.S. today and you say, I'm not feeling good, they'll treat you for fever. Unless you say, I'm from Africa. They say, we'll treat you for tropical disease. And so you find that a lot of people are dying on the other side because it's really cold.
Right.
So in one way or the other, you find that we are somehow immune, somehow, and if you really test everybody, chances are we all have it.
We all have it. Blackwater, you're saying
perspective.
you're supporting Dr. Marcy's proposal that Joho should now use community leaders. Are you saying that he hasn't been using community leaders? I think he has.
Talk to them again.
No, I don't think so. You see, there's a difference, right? When you go down to Old Town, this is where they have the IPK and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
So the radical kids are always down there. So you have to have a different approach. You cannot talk to a child the same way you talk to a grown person.
Yeah.
You could tell somebody, say, move the cup, or you could say, please move the cup. Those are two different ways of asking for the same thing. And somebody will do it. But here you go, chest thumping, talking to these radicals already, acting like, hey, you will do what I say. I wouldn't do it either. So let's take this from a different perspective. And another thing, you ask yourself, they're looking at how these tests are being done. They're very intrusive. Now we have Senegal that have a kit that you just draw blood and you do it. It's $1. Why can't you just get the kit? Make it easier for everybody. Do it themselves in their houses.
Right. Blackwater, I hear you saying that the governor could come out and say the exact same thing, but say it differently, and it would fall then on receptive ears.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And again, let's get the kit from Senegal. It's less intrusive, and it's more user friendly, and people would use, they'll be free to use that.
Thank you very much, Blackwater.
All right, cheers, guys.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
Thank you.
0719-012-600. That's where we'd like you to contribute. 0719-012-600. Also, you can post your comments on social media handles: Spice FM KE Facebook, Spice FM KE Twitter and Instagram. What is happening in Mombasa? How should Governor Joho address the people who are really up and rebelling against his orders? We are going to test you, mpende msipende, and now they've even ejected healthcare workers who are there to conduct the tests. What exactly should we do with this kind of situation? Let's go to Kisumu. Daniel, good morning.
Eric Latif.
Yes.
say hi to Dr. Mercy Korir and Nduoko.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, yes. My take is that politics is bad for healthcare system, and as much as we can need political goodwill, the case in Mombasa make me think at times that maybe do we really have enough community health volunteers who speak the same language as to these locals? Because you see, the rebel that is coming in as a result of lack of proper communication. And what I can say is that for the Governor Joho, what he can do, he can change the tact. He can replace that combative nature to a soft-spoken gentleman.
Okay.
I think that's the true meaning of hospital. You see, at times, when a hospital, when healthcare system was introduced in Africa, those who were giving health services were more so tolerant and not combative. You see, when that combative nature comes in, then it will be greeted with rebels, and that's why that's very bad. And in there was a first fallacy that the government did in the first place. They ignored the primary healthcare providers, who are the CHVs and those who are in the community level, for the community to own up this process. So they concentrated a lot on the clinical part of it. But the clinical, when we want to stop this COVID infection, we must go to the advocacy and awareness creation. That's when the community will own up this. But if the community, until up to date, even in Kisumu here, people feel that COVID is somehow government related. It's somehow milk cow for the government. And that one, that one is very serious out there.
True.
I've always tried to advise even people that why don't you just tune to other your television set to other counties, other countries,
and you'll see what's happening.
And this situation right there. I'm so much impressed that Kilifi is now responding well, and Kilifi is going to be a safe zone more than Mombasa.
Thank you very much, Daniel.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your contribution. You can call in 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. What is it that Governor Joho should be doing, or what is it that the people of Mombasa also should be doing to work together with the government? This is what the government is doing. The government has come out to explain. Is it the language of communication? Is it the mode of rolling out some of these measures? Why are we seeing such serious pushback, especially in Old Town Mombasa? 0719-012-600. This is a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Taking a look at traffic shortly, and then the conversation continues. It's 9:30.
Okay, traffic all the way to Cabanas from Reliance on Mombasa Road. It's moving very slowly, and it's really, really heavy that we see on Mombasa Road today. Absolutely no idea why. It just means that there are more vehicles on the road for now. No other explanation at this point can be given. We know that the road behind the ICD is being constructed, so a lot more vehicles in that area. Apart from that, around the city, we don't have any issues. We'll take a hop into Kisumu, where we said that there was no traffic. It was really clear within the city, and that remains the same. So we're looking at spots around Nairobi where there are issues. You should be open in a short while, and it should be fine thereafter. Spice FM KE through the day. Let us know what you see.
Situation, Kenya's biggest conversation. The conversation this morning is centering around
mature, intelligent talk every morning.
Governor Ali Hassan Joho went there the other day out of frustration, out of what he was seeing happening in the county, especially in Old Town. And he was telling people, look, we need to conduct mass testing. We need you to stay indoors. We need you to observe social distancing. We need you to wash your hands. We need you to avoid crowds. And yet you're not doing this. We want to conduct mass testing. And we are risking pushing ourselves to a situation where we lock Mombasa and Old Town, or Mombasa Island in general, locking it down. This is what we are asking. What should he do? Dominic Nkangemi, good morning.
Good morning. Habari zenu ndani?
Mzuri sana Dominic, tuko salama.
Ni bwana aitwaje? Huyu Governor Joe kidogo hapo jana anajichanganya sana kabisa, kwa sababu unajua huwezi ongoza watu eti kwa sababu umempa mtu chakula, sio umempa nini. Sasa unaona unammiliki. Hayo hivyo bwana. Mtu hata kama unamsaidia lazima kuna zile taratibu ambazo unafaa ufuate katika kumsemesha mtu. Si eti sasa wale vijana wamekosa sijui waingie kitaani ama atawafuata. Sasa hiyo ni kusema nini? Kwa sababu unajua mimi nikiwa kama kijana sasa, mtu kiniambia hivyo, mimi nitajiandaa kama mimi sema basi njoo bwana. Sasa hajasema vizuri, atumie viongozi wa dini, atumie watu katika nyumba 10 zile, watahamasisha vijana katika namna ya kutoka na kwenda kupima, lakini kusema atatumia nguvu
but Dominic, it appears like we are reacting to something that has already happened. Why is it that the youth were not following these guidelines up to a point where Joho thought he needed to come and talk tough on them?
Wajua yeye mwenyewe kwanza kama governor inafaa jiulize, mbona wale vijana wanakataa kujitokeza na kwenda kupimwa? Alafu mimi nikuulizaje Eric, kwani ili swala la kupimwa, mbona Kangora limetokea? Kila mtu Kangora ametoka kwenda kupima? Kila mtu hakutoka.
Sio kila mtu.
Kila mtu alotoka. Sasa bwana Joho atumie viongozi wa dini katika nyumba 10, hata vijana watatoka, lakini hiyo nguvu anayotumia kuna mambo labda hawafanyii watu kule chini. Si kwa hapa unajua sisi tunafunikwa tu, sijui wanapewa chakula watu. Sisi mengi hatujui, wale ndio wanajua kwa sababu wako pale, unaona?
Dominic, unaona ni kama kwamba kwa sababu Joho amewapa wakazi wa Mombasa chakula, ni kama anawadharau ama waonaje?
Si jambo la kuwadharau, kwa sababu yeye ni kiongozi na ni wajibu wake kwamba kama kiongozi lazima awalishe watu, kwa sababu sio favor anawafanyia. Lazima awalishe kwa sababu janga limetokea, na hata kando na janga ni lazima awalishe watu wake kwa sababu ni kiongozi. Naam. Sasa hii jambo la kuwadharau, lakini sasa ile kusema kwamba ati sijui tutafanyaje, tutakabiliana na nyinyi. Unajua hiyo kauli ni nzito sana katika mtu ambaye ana akili zake, tutakabiliana na nyinyi. Alafu mbaya zaidi anasema wale vijana eti yule kijana ama wale vijana watoke mtaani ama watatafutwa. Watoke waende wapi? Tuanzie hapo sasa. Mombasa kumefungwa, watoke waende wapi? So watajiandaa kama wao. Sema njoni bwana, kama mbaya.
Ungependa Joho afanye nini? Ama ungempenda afanye nini ama waambie nini vijana?
Vijana kwanza kuna lugha nzuri sana ya kuzungumza na vijana. Vijana hawa kuna viongozi, kuna youth leaders huko mtaani ambao wanawaelewa zaidi, unaona? Sasa county government ikitumia watu kama hawa isema bana bana kuna mtaa fulani vijana wanasumbua. Endeni muongee nao nini, viongozi wa dini. Kuna mashehe kule. Alafu wewe ulimuona hata yule shehe mzima yule alisemaje? Rais Makuvuli nini anaitwaje, huyu rais wa Tanzania amesema bana paipai na positive sijui nini.
Elizabeth.
Sasa mtu kama yule kijana akiwa pale alafu anasema nikienda kupima pale alafu itokee na positive, alafu serikali yenyewe ya Kenya unaona mtaikago akikuja pale jamaa mkali kweli kama sijui nini anakodoa macho hivi. Sasa unaona inakuwa ni shida. Sasa kijana ana imagine anasema hapa ni hatari, mimi nikitoka niende nipime ima niko nini negative nitaambiwa niko positive, kwa sababu wanasema vile vifaa vyenyewe vina matatizo. Naam. Alafu anaosema bwana ni rais wa nchi ambayo hiyo nchi ina watu wengi hata kuliko Kenya. Tanzania ina watu wengi sana kuliko Kenya. Sasa
lakini ukiangalia Dominic kule ni Tanzania, lakini hapa ukiangalia Mombasa, Joho mwenyewe anasema watu wakipimwa kama wanahitaji kwenda karantini ama wapi, serikali ya county ndio italipia. So vijana hawafai kuwa na wasiwasi wowote hata wakipatikana wako na virusi, county italipia.
Shida moja Kenya, sisi tunajua viongozi wetu wa Kenya kidogo, yani hatuamini kabisa. Si viongozi wanasiasa. Mimi tuamini kama kuna viongozi Kenya, siamini kabisa. Unajua kuna wanasiasa. Hao wanasiasa wetu kidogo, lugha zao ni tamu sana kwa ulimi, lakini matendo kidogo hakuna. Hiyo najua.
Dominic, thank you very much for speaking to us this morning. Have a good day.
Shukran.
Let's cross over back to Mombasa, and now we're joined by Mohammed Hersi. Mohammed Hersi is a veteran hotelier. He's the chairman of the Kenya Tourism Federation. Mohammed, good morning.
Morning, brother. How are you doing?
Salama kabisa. Thank you very much for speaking to us and joining us in this conversation. We are looking at what's happening in Mombasa. I mean, you are an opinion leader in Mombasa. You work closely with the government, county government, national government.
Yes.
Now we are seeing serious pushback from sections of the youth in Old Town.
Yes, we do have a challenge, but I also want to say that the few clips that are circulating, these are about very specific young people. There are hardly 20, 30 of them.
Okay.
In fact, that's even a very large number. But also what I can say is that we may not have handled the issue properly. When you coerce and you push them to go for the test, that may not be the best approach. And the main problem that we've had is that when you turn positive, and specifically applying to one of our mzees who passed on, Sheikh Rama, the entire family were taken, including a 1-year-old, without any notice, without any preparation, without any counseling, and they were basically dumped at Portris. That was not taken kindly. And that's one of the reasons why people started now getting worried and saying, hey, wait a minute. Why should I go for the test in the first place if I'm going to be treated like this?
Yeah.
But His Excellency, our governor, has now also changed tact, which is the right thing to do. And he has clearly said it. You go for quarantine, all the bills will be taken care of by the county government. And we've also set up, Mombasa has also set up a beautiful isolation center at the Technical University of Mombasa, 500 beds. Now, those are the places that are going to use, because you have to reassure anybody who goes for the test and turns out to be positive that they will be treated well and their families will not be stigmatized. So it is changing slowly. And I believe it's not even the entire Old Town is a very big area. It's composed of very many, estates. They crossed over the other day to Likoni, which is highly populated as well, where we have the Member of Parliament, Honorable Mishi Mboko. And the numbers that turned up are very many. Many people turned out to be tested. So we do have a few clips. Like yesterday, there's this young man who laid out a praying mat in the road. They're closing one of the lanes out there. That is a very small, it's a very minute, and I'm sure authorities will be able to meet them and find out what is the problem, because they've been pushing, for instance, the mosques to be reopened. But that's not the position of Supreme Council of Kenya Muslims, of the Imams Council of Kenya. These are very few, hardly 10, even when you look at those clips. So I will not read too much into those clips. And I would like to say, yes, we do have a challenge. Old Town happens to be a little bit, I don't want to call it an epicenter, but it has been able to give us a lot of the positive numbers because of our communal way of living. And that is what we need to address.
So if you go back to the case where the whole family was rounded up and dumped at Portris, would there be room in Old Town or some of the families in Mombasa? Would there be room to do home-based quarantine, home-based isolation for entire families, instead of, even though there is the isolation center, 500 beds and quarantine facilities, and the county will take care of, is there room to consider home-based options as opposed to going to a facility outside?
Yes, that is on the table and it has been discussed. And in fact, the Ministry of Health has come up, I believe, with the first draft of home-based care, where people can isolate. And personally, I've also met some of the council of members of imams. And we do have people who live most of them live in apartments. You may find a 3-bedroom or 4-bedroom apartment. You may find a 1-bedroom that is vacant. Or sometimes an entire apartment is free because some of their kids are working out of the country.
Yep.
And this is what they're saying. They're saying, look here, we can actually show you where we can isolate ourselves. Give us a chance. So first thing first now is that what we are doing now is to encourage people who are able to isolate and quarantine themselves. And they're given the rules, and they will be able to understand. Now, instead of just rushing and putting them in an ambulance and then dumping them somewhere, we might as well test them. And then you may just discover out of probably 9 members in a family, only 10 have turned positive.
Yeah.
The rest are all okay. So they need to self-quarantine and then hope that the other 2 will be able to separate themselves until such a time, they turn out, to be negative. It has happened. And probably also many people may have actually caught the virus and recovered without knowing.
Without knowing it. Mohammed, what's it going to... Right.
In fact, in UK, none other than Boris Johnson said it. Even NHS are saying don't rush to hospital to be tested. Even if you feel unwell and you've got the symptoms, stay at home.
Yep.
Unless you start running out of breath and you're having shortness of breath and you're feeling quite unwell, only then should you seek the ambulance to come and pick you. So even in UK, I have friends, I have people who have been able to recover and they've had all the signs that this is actually COVID. So in our case, I think the way we handle things is not good. Not only in Mombasa, even Nairobi.
Yeah.
We are very quick, to pick you and we are taking you to, that was not right. And yes, Mombasa people were not very happy with that. But I believe those are mistakes and we are learning from it. And I believe we should be able to be back on track.
So, Mr. Mohammed, 2 months into the COVID pandemic in Kenya, 4 months globally, is it not too late to still be having this thing on the table instead of being implemented, the home-based
Coming
options?
up with a first draft now.
I mean, it's supposed to be now we have doing it, and these are the challenges that we are facing, as opposed to it's on the table.
Okay, I may not be, I'm not the one to purport that I'm speaking for government, but to be fair to them, this is a very new virus. We've not even understood it. It's still being understood. France yesterday said that this thing could have been circulating in France as early as December.
Yep.
Because what they did is that they did some tests and some of the, whatever they normally freeze them, and they went to test them just to discover actually it was COVID-19 positive. All right? That is number one. Number two, then there's a lot of fear because this is where now Magufuli makes a little bit of sense where he says we have to be careful not to push too much fear in people. Because when you push too much fear in people, then it's counterproductive. All right? So home-based care, and I think the approach, even in many parts of Europe, they encourage you to self-quarantine. And 85% of the cases, you just end up with a little bit mild, you get unwell a little bit, but eventually you shake it off based on your immunity system.
True.
Yes. So I don't think I will blame them, but it is never too late to correct it, but they need to move fast and correct that position. Now, if somebody lives in a bedsitter or in a crowded place and you are not able to self-quarantine in your home, then those are the people now who deserve to be given those places and treated well. Take them, let's say, to the Technical University of Mombasa where there's enough space. But people who are well off, you've got 4-bedroom house, 5-bedroom house. Why should you go and occupy space that could have been occupied by somebody from Kawangware who is on a bedsitter?
Sure, that makes sense.
So Mohammed, that's what we need to do.
Right, Mohammed. So right now we have a situation where people are agitated, right? The temperatures are quite high. Taking all that you've said into consideration, what needs to be done now? We're talking about today, because on one side, it's clear that testing needs to take place, right? On the other side, it's clear that we need to be heard. Now, staying away from the violence and all these other things that were done, like you said, it's a small number of people, maybe 20 to 30 people. When you talk about insignificance, they fall there, right? What needs to be done that can be done today that will get people to understand this position, or at least get people on the table whereby they're all in a position of understanding?
It is already happening. His Excellency, the Governor, I'm aware, has met the religious leaders. He's met Mji or Wazee wa Mji. These are the the elders. Not even Nyumba Kumi. We have Wazee wa Mji. These are people who are respected in Old Town, and they've already met. And these are some of the things being discussed. We have Sheikh Hitami, one of our leading old men in religious leaders in Mombasa, and very many of them. And they brought this idea 3 weeks ago. They said, look here, why don't we consider, quarantine in our own homes instead of exposing these people to even more dangers? Of course, at that time, nobody considered that. But obviously, this was ahead of us. And now we will be going that direction. And I think it's the best way to approach it. And then most importantly is to stop this unnecessary, fight that it is us against them. And also we must also avoid, and this is the problem, and this is where we need to speak to these young men, and especially young men, that Old Town should not be stigmatized. Even when we are announcing, I think we need to be careful. I think they should just leave it as Mombasa. The more you continue talking about, you remember, you're dealing with a community that has some pride as well. And then Mombasa, you've got Majengo, you've got Stadium, you've got Guraya, you've got many places. Now, even within Mombasa, guys are saying, "Hey, Old Town, Corona.
What's going on?"
Hey, what's going on? So that is not nice. So I think, in my opinion, even when they're announcing, you said how many are posted. After all, Old Town is in Kenya, whether you like it or not, they're still part of us. So I think the Old Town aspect should be kept for administrative purposes, but don't broadcast it and to say, hey, because Old Town is a very small place, a very small, tiny area, also highly populated, of Mombasa Island.
Mohammed, before we let you go, we know we have you, so let's just ask you all these questions. We know you're a member, you sit on the board of the COVID Response Fund.
Yes.
And you've been receiving a lot of donations, now going close to approaching 3 billion shillings of what you've already received in terms of food and non-food. What is the distribution like for that? Because we see a lot of, media coverage when you're receiving. We don't see any media coverage or you talking about it when you're going to hand out to the people who are in need.
Okay. Let me firstly say that our team is called the Kenya COVID-19 Fund Board.
Yes.
And we are men and women of very high repute in this country, private sector. The only people in government who sit with us in that team is the CS, Matiangi, and we have Ken Kihara, and then we have got the Council of Governors Chair, Oparanya.
Yes.
You said that we are receiving a lot, but we are not being seen when we are giving.
Yes.
Number one, we have appealed to corporate well-wishers and everybody to donate. So our website was up just around 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago, and donations are coming in. And a lot of the donations are also pledges. The 3 billion or 2.8 billion, most of it is pledges. Real cash is just on and about just 1-point-something billion. Now, why are we not being seen when we are giving? I want to say this. When it comes to the cash aspect, we have not spent a single cent yet. Get that very clear. We've not spent a single cent. Now, the donations in kind, what we are doing, what we've done is that, you remember we also issued a memo to say that, look here, do not, or rather register with us, tell us where you're going to do your donation.
Okay.
We were not out to stop anybody from donating. All we wanted is to control in such a way that to manage the process so that, let's say if you don't go to one area and then I come later and donate to the same place.
Yeah.
And what happened was that people are opting, it's unfortunate, not everybody, but quite a number, are very keen on the photo shoot. And what happens is that people only donate to the people who are just next around the tarmac or easily accessible area.
Okay.
So deep inside the slums, nobody was reaching there. So we solved that problem through, and we're working with very many organizations from the Hindu Council. We have Pankaj team. We have got very many. We've got Ramgaria, the Sikh team, and very many of them, and all of them are telling us where they are going and what they are donating and what they are doing, and we've kept tally of that, and we have it all, and we will be loading that one very soon on our website so that you can see everything that came through us, but we did not even handle it. We allowed the teams, because there are people who trust specific people.
Yeah.
Don't bring it to us. And after all, truth be said, we don't have the infrastructure to handle donations in kind ourselves alone. Because the main reason why we were created, the first one, was how to help the medics in the front line. So a lot of the funds are going to be used to get staff for the medics on the front. We need to protect them. And our chair will soon be announcing how much we spend and what is being delivered. These are huge consignment that's going to arrive anytime, and that will be handed over to specific hospitals where we have got high cases, so that we're able to protect these men and women who are in the front line fighting, this virus. So then the issue on transparency. We are being audited. We've got KPMG with us, and everything is above board, and we will load everything on this website, and you'll even be able to see how much we paid for anything and everything. And lastly, we are not earning a single cent ourselves as a board. We are free of charge. We are not. So all these stories that was in the papers the other day, that was not us. That is another department altogether. In our case, we've not spent a cent yet. And when we start spending, we'll tell you where we spend the money. And transparency, our chair is Jen Karuku, the MD of East Africa Breweries.
Mohammed Hersi, thank you very much for speaking to us. He's the chairman of the Kenya Tourism Federation. He's also sitting on the board of the COVID-19, the Kenya COVID-19 Emergency Response Fund. No, what did you just call it again? The Kenya COVID-19 Fund.
Kenya COVID-19 Fund.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, that's the board. Yes, emergency fund. Yeah.
Asante sana, Mohammed.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a
good day.
Bye.
The phone lines are still open, 0719 012 600. It's steering the conversation back into Mombasa and what's happening there in terms of the perceived resistance, because now it appears like it's perceived resistance to the orders being issued by the government. Good morning. 10 minutes.
Spice FM. Spice up your life.
Well, it's reassuring to hear that the government is working with local people who have social capital in the community to address these issues. And if these wazayas can then come up and talk to the youth or pass on the message directly to the youth and say, this is what we expect you to do, then the issue could be addressed very, very easily.
True. And I think it's encouraging that the governor and his leadership in the county is listening to feedback from the people, because if he's already talking to people in the communities who have a say, who can sway and make people listen to what's happening, then that's an encouraging point of view.
I think so. It really renewed my hope when we heard all these stories popping up yesterday, and I thought, okay, this guy has tried to do so much in Mombasa in terms of helping out and making sure things came to a head, and then we're going to have a situation that will scuttle the process essentially. But then he's been able to bounce back from this too. When Mohammed said this, I was quite highly encouraged, because that means that he understands what he needs to do, but he also understands that the people are going to be the vehicle through which this will be achieved. And for any leader to get to that place where you understand that it's the people essentially that you must not just convince, but actually speak in truth, that you're really there for their concerns, they will eventually listen to you. And for you to take a step back and say, we've done all this, why wouldn't you listen to us? But then see that there's somebody else that you can now be on a platform with. I think he still remains the poster child for the country in terms of what needs to be done and past the COVID era.
I'll think of him remaining as a poster child if we see the fruits from what we've had. Because remember, we've just had, we need to see it.
Yeah.
And as Dominic had said earlier, we have a country where leaders speak very nicely. Politicians speak very nicely, but the actions are rather bitter. So let's wait and see.
If he does eat humble pie, and we'll hear, it won't take long before we hear it. It will be very, very good, I think.
It will also be good to hear the number of people who turn up for this testing.
Yes.
Right? So like Mohammed is saying, when you cross over into Likoni, people are turning up for testing voluntarily. When you come into, for example, Old Town, in Old Town, people may be willing to come out, but because of the few youth who are very loud, who are causing all this disruption, they may fear to come out for fear of whatever repercussion they may, come across. It will be interesting to hear now, moving forward, after speaking with the community leaders, that people are coming out. These are the number of people that we've tested so far in this particular area, and it's no longer an issue of, Old Town is the hotspot for COVID-19.
And I think that was also a very good point. While it's good for public health administration or public health follow-up, it's good for epidemiological follow-up. I think listing places, just narrowing it down, stigmatizes it. So maybe we need to sort out or address the issue of stigma. Or address the issue of not saying exactly where. Like if it's Mombasa, just say Mombasa County. So we have it. For me, it's something that needs proper thinking around, because you still need people to know it's Old Town, so that people are aware, and there's heightened measures. If anyone goes to a hospital and you ask where you're coming from and you say Old Town, then people are on high alert. It's important. But then again, how do we deal with stigma? As Mohammed said, you told watu wa Old Town, nyinyi ni watu wa corona.
Yeah,
so we need to
because the government dropped the ball a long time ago. The government turned corona into a crime. Into, if you test positive for corona, A, you're dying, 2, you're killing other people, and 3, you're a criminal who needs to be locked up, and you will pay
for your own lock.
And if you die, you'll be buried at night. This is where the government needs to step back and say, all right, so we need to address this issue of stigma as a whole, because I don't think isolating places is a wrong idea. I think it's still an important point for heightened surveillance, for you to know, all right, in this particular area of ours, we need to be more careful.
More careful than the rest.
We have got more cases here.
A friend of mine usually thinks or says that, men, if you're a minority here today or this week, men are, it's harder for men to apologize for mistakes and correct. And unfortunately, our top leadership everywhere has men. So are we likely to see government at the top, from the National Emergency Response Committee, looking at some of these things and say, you know what, people, we apologize. Okay, they may not say we apologize, but at least say
we were wrong.
We were wrong. We are correcting A, B, C, and D. You'll not pay for your own A, B, C, and D. You'll not.
We'll take care of it.
Let's wait and see. Let's hope. Well, join us again tomorrow, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Tomorrow we'll be talking about floods, because this is also another disaster that's unfolding in the country. Floods in Budalangi, in Nyanza, in the entire Nyanza basin, in other parts of the country. We'll be looking at that the whole day tomorrow. Today's proverb: rain does not fall on one roof alone. Trouble or blessings do not discriminate. Come to everyone at a specific place. Good morning. It's now 10 o'clock. See you tomorrow.